And Southern hypocrisy will help Atiku Abubakar to succeed Buhari, political pundits have stated. Well, this is Plus Politics. I'm Mary Anacom. After the presidential primaries held by the People's Democratic Party (PDP) last weekend, which produced former Vice President Atiku Abubakar as the party's candidate for next year's election, political leaders in the South have been accusing the North of betrayal. Two Southern groups, the Pan-Niger Delta Forum, PANDEF, the Middle Belt Forum, have also led the charge. Now, just as the Southerners had begun to clamor for a Southern presidency, anti-zoning elements began to voice out their beliefs, even though it was this zoning formula that produced past presidents. The South is obviously not happy with the way things are as regards the zone and the next president, where he might come from. Who should they blame or hold accountable? Well, joining us to discuss this, Francis Chilaka and Segun Shopito, both are political analysts. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Marianne.
Great.
Good evening, Nigeria.
Great. Segun, I'm going to start with you. The Pan-Niger Delta Forum, the Middle Belt Forum, a lot of people, even in the Southwest, have continuously asked for zoning of party tickets to different parts of the South. In fact, they have just said, we need a Southern president. But then what happened over last weekend that produced former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has had many people speaking out against the People's Democratic Party, and again also speaking about the fact that Southerners may not necessarily be ready to produce a Southern candidate. But what are your thoughts, especially from what happened over the weekend last week?
Thank you once again. So, I don't think anybody that has been watching political events over the last decade or thereabouts would have been surprised by what happened on the weekend. It was expected. I don't think the PDP would have done anything else. I don't think any other candidate was ever going to take that ticket. And the reason is very, very simple. In spite of the sentiments about rotation, between the North and the South and what have you, we must remember that at the end of the day, the people that are involved in all of these calculations, and strategizing and all of that are politicians. And to them, the overriding interest is their own interest first. So, the emergence of Atiku, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, was more about which of the candidates those politicians felt stood the greatest chance of defeating an incumbent government, regardless of whichever candidate that incumbent government or incumbent party eventually presents. So in the eyes of the delegates and what have you, they felt that regardless of the zoning arrangement, Atiku stood the biggest chance. That's not to say, that's without prejudice to the very show of shame that we saw with how money also became a major factor. But observers will tell you that the money alone wasn't going to be enough. If money alone was going to do it, then Wike would have won. Governor Wike would have won because, the news is, the information is out there with regards to the dollars that were flying around and what have you. So, but money in itself was not enough. This was about interests, and I think that the interest of the People's Democratic Party the guys that were making the decision felt was best served by the emergence of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and that's what we saw play out.
But do you think that the reason why the PDP necessarily went for an Atiku, or the delegates, let's use the delegates now, not necessarily the PDP, allowed for the former vice president to emerge yet again? Did you think they were looking at mostly the likelihood of, you know, others not being able to withstand what the ruling party, or whoever the ruling party would be fielding, I mean, come this weekend? Could it have been about that? Could it be that they were afraid that maybe all of these other candidates did not have the kind of reach that the former vice president does have? And again, looking at the former vice president and all of the other presidential aspirants on the other different platforms of political parties, including the NNPP, and of course the ADC, that also has at least 12 presidential candidates, you know, in the running. Does Atiku really stand a chance, or do we see something, somewhat of a stalemate coming, you know, down the line?
Yeah, so Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, remember, is a seasoned campaigner, is a seasoned warrior. And when you look at the field, if you look at the playing field right now, outside of the ruling party, there really isn't anybody that has his stature. And that's just the truth. You know, he has run for the presidency numerous times, and he hasn't done particularly badly, in spite of what you might want to call the baggage that appeared to have surrounded him, his person and his personality in those previous elections. He hasn't done too badly. So is it Governor Wike that you're going to present as the opposition candidate, or who? I mean, which one is it? Is it Bukola Saraki, you know, and all of those other people? Even a Kwankwaso, with the influence that he wields, that influence is limited, significantly limited to a specific region in the north. Once you step out of that region, he doesn't stand a chance, you know. But if you look at Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, he's done it before. You know, in 2011, he won votes all across all of the entire country. So yes, I think that, you know, the calculation was more about his chances in the polls against a ruling party that is incumbent, and they'll have the machinery of states to support their candidature.
If what you just said, the last statement you made, is anything to go by, you're talking about the fact that the former vice president has run. In other words, he's been given an opportunity by the party. He was canvassed for by the party. In other words, they tried to make sure that he had likability across the board. And that's why he was able to, again, pick up that ticket. But then if we're looking at the Kwankwaso, or let's say Governor Wike, if they were to give those people an opportunity, don't you think they would also somewhat win that likability, being that, like you said, the PDP does have a structure across the country?
Well, yes, you could push that argument or that perspective maybe with the Kwankwaso, because he does have some, you know, he's been around for a while. He has, you know, allies across the country, you know, in Lagos, in Southwest, maybe even to a very much lesser extent, maybe in the Southeast, and to a much lesser extent again, maybe in the South, you know. So you could argue that yes, if a Kwankwaso gets the full support of the PDP, maybe he might also have not done too badly. But you cannot rule out the influence of the personality itself. Remember that the Nigeria political space at the moment is all about personality cults. You know, we're not the institutions themselves really don't carry that much weight. You know, and that's the reason, for example, why the APC, against all odds, went for a Buhari candidacy in 2015. It's all about the personality. So the Atiku personality, you know, the fact that he's been a vice president for 2 terms, he's run for the presidency thereafter several times. I think this is the 3rd time, if I'm not mistaken. The fact that he, of course, is very, very well resourced. You know, he has a huge war chest that the party itself will need to rely on. given that they are not in government at the moment. They don't have access to our resources, our commonwealth at the center. You know, so yes, you might argue that maybe a Kwankwaso might have done fairly well, but he couldn't have done as well as Atiku did. And as far as I'm concerned, forget about the Wike candidacy. I think that was dead on arrival because, you know, by virtue of the nature of the politics that the gentleman practices, you know, he's not a very, very popular and likable person. Remember, look, if you look at Atiku, the guy is a very wily politician. He knows the right sound bites to issue in the right places. This guy has invested his life in building acceptance across board. So he's married a Yoruba woman, he's married an Igbo woman, you know, and all of that. These were all strategic steps that he's taken over the years to sell himself to an entire country. You know, you can't equate such a personality maybe with a Wike or even a Kwankwaso. So I think his sellability was a major factor in his emergence, you know, at that convention more than anything else.
Now let's move from the PDP to the ruling party, the APC. We see, you know, a lot is happening. A lot has even happened within the week leading up to the, you know, the ruling party's primaries, which is coming up soon. We've seen a shift in date over and over again. Many pundits have said that the APC probably has too many candidates and they do not know which to pick. Some pundits would say that the APC was waiting to see who would emerge within the PDP before they were able to make a choice. But then we also have seen, let's come back to the South because we're talking about the South here. We've seen the Southern candidates in the APC. They seem to outnumber candidates from every other place. We're seeing more of them. But then would we see the same hypocrisy play out when it comes to the APC as to a Southern candidate emerging or holding that flag, you know, come the primaries day for, you know, the APC? Because many are saying that the South just is clamoring, but then when it comes down to it, we're not as supportive of one another as we should be. I would like for you to see if you agree or disagree with this.
I mean, look, before you even that argument to the ruling party, you have to start that argument with the opposition party, the main opposition party, the PDP. You know, the hypocrisy of our politicians is legendary in proportions. You know, it rankles to the high heavens. So in one breath, over the last 2.5, maybe 3 years, as the elections drew closer, most of the Southern politicians, governors, the Governors Forum, the legislators, you know, and the rest of them have been insistent that, you know, power must come back to the South, right? Then the primaries come up, and there's quite a number of Southern candidates or candidates that you can sell in the South, but they didn't get the votes of the delegates from their own region, because that's the only way that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar would have defeated Governor Wike with the margin that he did. It means that a huge chunk of the people from the South voted for Atiku. And therein lies the hypocrisy. So on the one hand, yes, we're saying we want a Southern candidate, but when you now hold up that supposed desire against their personal interest, political and financial, we all know which one supersedes and which one eventually took the day. So therein lies the hypocrisy there. Now, if you move that debate to the ruling party, it's even more, I think it's more complex because, like you rightly said, the majority of the candidates that have emerged or that have indicated interest in the ruling party are from the South, right? So talking about the hypocrisy, one would have expected that, knowing fully well that at this moment, the opposition party has gone for an arrangement of pragmatism, you know, and have gone for a candidate that can give the ruling party a good run for their money. One would have expected that the Southern elements within the ruling party would align very quickly around one of them, and maybe the one that will stand the best electoral chance at the polls. But, you know, maybe it's early in the day. to talk too much about this because their primaries are around the corner. But if all the intrigues and all the stories that we've been hearing is anything to go by, it's probably going to be a very bloody battle. And there's going to be a lot of bloody noses at the end of the primaries. I suspect that there's going to be a joker, So the recent statement by the president to the governors forum is probably an indicator that they're planning a joker of some sort. And it will take people that are highly connected to the corridors of power to know what that joker is likely to be.
But it takes me to something that I have been, tinkering on. Why the president should be the one to determine. I mean, we have governors, we have delegates. These are people that should have a right to decide whether it should be a consensus. And of course, correct me if I'm wrong, for a consensus to be sacrosanct, it has to be agreed by all parties that are involved. Even though the APC would say that consensus way would be the best way, but then we also see that we have big figures. We have people who are strong men in quotes within the party, and the interests differ. I mean, let's start with the likes of the former governor of Lagos State, and then we have the vice president. We also have former governors. We have Erocha Sokorocha. We have so many of these people, including the Senate President, Lawan. And so these are very strong personalities. And you talked about, a joker. If what people have been saying, the pundits have been, talking about the fact that if the PDP goes with a northern candidate, then the ruling party might also want to go with a northern candidate in order to be able to, match them. But do you necessarily think that we as a country are at a place where we are looking at where you come from, or we're looking at who's able to steer the ship in the right direction?
The political situation in Nigeria at the moment and the considerations, even of the suffering masses, are sadly very mundane, for want of a better expression. So really, like you said, we should be looking at who's the best candidate for the job at this time. But that unfortunately appears to be a distant third or fourth consideration as far as these politicians are concerned, and as far as quite a large chunk of, even the voting public is concerned. People are more concerned about where somebody is from, where he should go, and all of those things, So it remains to be seen how this is going to play out. Between the candidacy of the former governor of Lagos and the current vice president, the current Senate president, and maybe a potential dark horse in the clergyman who has declared that God has shown him that he's number 16, President 16. We'll see how that plays out. I think probably those are the biggest contenders. Now, I doubt very strongly that the APC would make the political strategy error of presenting the Senate president just because it's from the north. And I say that because, again, just like I said with regards to Atiku Abubakar, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, Nigeria is still a country. Our politics is driven by personality cults, strong men rather than strong institutions. This is a huge factor. Who is Ahmed Lawan in the political equation of Nigeria? He is a Senate president that is not particularly charismatic.
But he served in the National Assembly for at least 35 years. So that question of who is he?
Exactly. But that exactly is the point. For somebody who has been, more or less in the corridors of power as a public officer for that long, you would think that he would command more clout and more respect and more influence across board. Remember, the key factor here is that whoever is going to contest against Alhaji Atiku Abubakar at the moment must be able to swing influence across board, across the Niger and the Benue. So for me, the APC, I'm very, very sure, because politicians are very strategic creatures. I'm very sure they won't make that mistake. If the APC presents that gentleman, then very, very likely two scenarios. One, the PDP wins, or
Mr. Shopeson, are you still there? I think we lost you for a second. Mr. Shopeson, are you still there? I think that we lost that connection briefly. I'll try again. Mr. Shopeson, can you hear me?
Oh, okay, yes, I can hear you now. Can you?
Okay, great. We lost you for a second.
Yes,
you were trying to say that it's either the PDP loses or what?
Yes. So if the APC were to make the strategic error of presenting the current Senate president, then what you would have is two possible scenarios. One, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar will win, by a significant margin. That's one. A second possible scenario that a lot of Nigerians will be hoping for is that the current movement, the current momentum that is gathering behind the candidacy of Mr. Peter Obi becomes a beneficiary, because, that gentleman is beginning to rustle feathers, there's a lot of, he has captured the imagination of the Nigerian. He has captured the imagination of the Nigerian. So if the two major parties don't play their cards right, Peter Obi is waiting in the wings to take the day. And I'm sure that the guys in the APC know this, and I'm sure they'll play their games right, so regardless of whatever the conspirations about North and South dichotomy and what have you might be. But again, like I said, we have to wait to see how things play out in a couple of days.
Talking about ruffling feathers, let's look at the video that's been trending of the former governor of Lagos State. Some people would call it a meltdown of sorts while he was meeting with heads of government in the southwest. He did make bold to say that he gave President Buhari the opportunity to lead the country. He also talked about Governor Dakpo Abiodun. He talked about other people, that he made a way for. And some people would call that a sense of entitlement. And some would say that, well, he's saying that he has been a kingmaker and it's time for a kingmaker to be made king. What are your reactions to that video and the contents? Mostly said in Yoruba, obviously, but it was translated. Because you're Yoruba, I'm sure that you understood every bit of it. What did you make of it? Do you think that the former governor is sensing that there might, like you said, be a joker of sorts that might upstage him and other members of the party, or is there something else underneath?
So one of the strongest indicators that gave me personally as a keen observer of the process, and indeed somebody who is actually involved. I'm also involved in this process on behalf of the third force. We're trying to build consensus, build alliances, and build coalitions to give the two evil twin brothers a good run for their money. So as somebody who is involved in this process, listening to Ashwaju kind of made me smile, because first of all, to put that meltdown, like you called it, because it was a meltdown, to put that meltdown into context, you have to realize and recognize that this gentleman has his ears right on the walls of Aso Rock. Whatever is happening in those places, he hears about them, right? So for him to have come out to say those things, it was a cry of desperation. This was a man that has seen that things are not going his way, and is now throwing the kitchen sink. He's basically throwing tantrums at the president and reminding the president that you would not have been here today if it wasn't for me. Therefore, you must reciprocate. Therefore, you must know that it is my turn, and all of that. And that is a very strong indicator that the request of the president to the governors forum to reciprocate his own support, picking their successor for getting their second term ticket.
Life can be fun and rewarding, but it also comes with some risk. As in business, you win some, you lose some. And that's why you need to be wise in the choices you make. It's like placing a bet. Again, you need to be wise. Wise in choosing an innovative platform with the highest market options and highest odds ever. That's why Winners Golden Bet, the leader in online, in-shop, virtual, and live sports betting, gives you enhanced platforms that offer you the best chances of winning. For betting on live soccer matches, live dog races, and virtual games. Winners Golden Bet is your best bet. Instant payment on winnings guaranteed. Play online or in any of our numerous shops nearest to you.
Hey guys, be wise. Play on Winners Golden Bet.
Winners Golden Bet, the wise choice.
Thank you for staying with us. Apologies for that break. We have been speaking about the zoning formula for different political parties, and of course we have been speaking with Segun Sopitan, who's a political analyst and he's of ACT Network. Segun, because we are almost out of time, quickly wrapping up now. I spoke earlier today with the presidential aspirants for the NNPP, Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, on the readiness, mental readiness of the average Nigerian to embrace new political parties, other political parties other than the APC and the PDP. And he seemed to be very optimistic as to the fact that Nigerians are looking for something new. For someone who works with, social, you work with the... you work with NGOs, you work with people, civil society, you are into voter education. Do you think that Nigerians have come of age to embrace other political parties and move away from the norm? In closing.
Yeah, Nigerians are very, very ready. From all of the feedback that we get from all the engagements that are ongoing, Nigerians are not just ready, like they're desperate. But you have to define what we mean by Nigerians when we say this, because Nigeria is a classic case of the tale of two cities. We have two Nigerias. We have the Nigeria of the downtrodden, very poor masses, in quotes, who really will do the bidding of their masters. And then you have the latent, dormant voters who have never really participated in the process because they are disenchanted, either because they believe their votes will not count or because they believe that whoever is going to emerge will not serve their interests, right? If we look at that second Nigeria, they're all desperate to see that third party, that third alternative, that third option emerge. So what needs to happen, what the likes of Malam Kwankwaso must recognize is that the only way that this will work, the only way that any of those parties, whether it's NNPP, whether it's Labour Party, whether it's ADC, any one of them, the only way they're going to stand any chance, the slightest of chances, and it will be a slight chance because we're talking about two behemoths that have been around since this Fourth Republic started. The only way they will stand a chance is if they align and they work together and they forget their personal interests. We cannot have two presidents. Kwankwaso cannot be president and Peter Obi will be president. Somebody must be president, somebody must be vice, and then others must be either ministers or members of the National Assembly. So if these parties can come together, then maybe, just maybe, there might be a chance.
Well, Segun Sopitan is a political analyst and he's of ACT Network. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation.
Always a pleasure, Maria. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being part of the conversation. Well, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll discuss former Governor Rabiu Kwankwaso and, of course, the NNPP as he gets set to take over the party's flag come the National Convention. Stay with us.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better? Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on Plus TV Africa as he probes deep in search of solutions. Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Former governor of Kano State and presidential candidate of the new Nigeria People's Party (NNPP), Rabiu Kwankwaso, has stated that no one of the other presidential aspirants can match him in the upcoming elections. He added that the average Nigerian is looking for something new, and that is what the NNPP is bringing. He stated these and more earlier today when I had a sit down with him. Let's take a listen. This is Plus Politics, and I am Mary Anacon, and today we'll be speaking with the presidential aspirant on the platform of the new Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. It's good to have you join us, Senator.
Thank you very much.
So, I'm sure people have asked you so many questions about why you have chosen to leave the PDP and become the NNPP's candidate to run for presidency, but that's on the side. We've seen many people, break into groups and call themselves third forces, and the NNPP has also been identified as one. So I think my curiosity is, what does the NNPP have that will make it so formidable to be a third force against the two major political parties?
Thank you very much. On the first question of why I decided to leave the PDP, is very simple. You see, I was part of the formation of PDP right from the beginning in 1998. 1999, I was governor of Kano State. And I have been there until 2014, when it was very clear to me and many Nigerians that PDP had actually derailed from the PDP we formed in 1998. Even though at that particular time, the main issue was to kick out the military. But we started very well under Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. And for the 8 years he was president, I was governor for 4 years and Minister of Defense for the remaining period. And when we noticed the issue, we thought there was need for change. And when the idea of progressive people across the country to come together and form a formidable group to bring change and therefore bring progress to the country, I joined them. And at the end of the day, we were able to succeed by way of bringing this government in 2015. Unfortunately, along the line, we realized that the party, the APC itself, became even worse than the PDP. And therefore, we had no choice other than to come to a better place at that particular time, just before 2019. Now, when I was there in the PDP, I realized again that the operators did not change at all. In fact, if anything, they became worse than I left them. And that was why we started talking to our friends across the country, people of like minds, people who are angry with what is happening today in this country in terms of leadership. And of course, we are angry with the PDP itself, believing that they would change, and they didn't change. And that was why we mooted the idea of getting a platform that will actually reflect our own ideology, reflect our own dream about this country. Our dream is simple. We want to see a very united Nigeria. We want to see good governance. We want to see people of good credibility in government at all levels. And we want the progress of this country. And therefore, we came together and we intended to register our own party. Unfortunately, the INEC was not ready to register any party before the 2023 election. That was why we looked around and got a party, the New Nigeria People's Party, which was registered 21 years ago. And from the name and what we saw in terms of the constitution and all other things of the party, we believe that that was the sort of party that we would have even registered ourselves. So we came together and formed a group, the National Movement, which was launched sometimes this year in Abuja. And then from there, when we go to the party, we moved into it. And I'm so happy that today the NNPP had its congresses in all the wards of this country, in the local governments, in the states, the zone, and of course we had our convention on 30th March of this year. Now we are in the process of selling forms for those who want to contest elections, State Assembly, House of Reps, Senate, governorship, and even presidential. And we have gone very far. In most states, that was being completed. And in other states, very few other states, we are working on the issue of the congresses that will complete the entire process of selling the forms and choosing or selecting or electing our own candidates for the party. So we are so happy that today we have people of like minds who are together. And I have no doubt in my mind that there are millions and millions of Nigerians today who think in our own direction, meaning that the two parties have failed us, and therefore we have to get a better platform that will reflect this situation that we find ourselves, especially as it relates to the issue of security, economy, and of course the education, infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So we are so happy that we are together with the young men and women across the country and all people of goodwill.
How sure are you that Nigerians have come of age to be able to embrace any other party outside of the PDP and the APC? I ask this because the NNPP, before you came, I'm glad that, you have the Kwankwaso movement, which has been, formidable for a long time. But how easy is it going to be for you to change the mindset of the average Nigerian voter to embrace the NNPP, for you to be that third force indeed? Of course, Nigerians are in need of something new, but how do you get them to embrace it?
Well, I'm happy to say that Nigerians have already done that. Within a very short period of time, in fact, within 3 months, we were able to register millions and millions of Nigerians across the country. In just 3 months, we were able to do our congresses and convention. In just 3 months, we are able to fill almost all the vacancies, all the positions that are supposed to be contested in 2023 election. And you can see anywhere we go, we have people calling, we have people talking, we have people supporting our party. And don't forget, we have now about 9 months from now to election. This is early June, I think it's the 3rd of June today, and we're talking of 25th of February next year for the election. We have never had this sort of luxury of time after convention. Before now, we were having our conventions toward the end of the year, And early in the year, we have, within 2-3 months maximum, we have our general elections. But now, I can tell you, Nigerians will come to know, come to understand more about the movement. And I'm happy you mentioned the issue of Kwankwaso and even the national movement, who are working together, and they are all members of this NNPP and many other people of goodwill, those who believe that we need to have a united Nigeria, we need to have capable hands to lead this country, because everybody believes that we have all these issues, all these challenges on the ground because of lack of good and capable leadership.
Talking about the Kwankwaso movement, I'm always curious because some movements can be for personal interest, and the average Nigerian is supposed to be your objective here as someone who's running to be the president of the country. Nigerians have for a long time looked for a president that had them at heart, and I'm guessing that that's why you're running. So I'm asking, for the Kwankwaso movement, what's the youth participation like? Because again, 80% of Nigerians, if not 75%, are young people. We have a very youthful population. What are you intending to do to also engage that huge population?
Yes, I'm happy to say that all the opportunities that I had in the past, we have demonstrated very clearly to all the young men and women that our ideology, our projects and programs were always geared towards the good of the young men and women, and of course the needy. We have done that, especially when I was governor of Kano in 1999 to 2003. And when I was governor again in 2011 and 2015, in between, I held positions of senator, held position at NDDC, because I represented Northwest Political Zone in the NDDC. Before that period also, I was in the House of Reps as Deputy Speaker, House of Reps in 1992, and so on and so forth. So over the years, we were able to convince the young men and women. And that was why you find that Kwankwaso is being embraced by everybody, especially the young men and women, because they know us very well. They know and they believe that if we have opportunity, we will even do better. So we have no problem of the issue of young men and women. They have already taken positions in our movement of Kwankwaso. But now we are even talking of the NNPP, which is a political party, which many other people who are not necessarily Kwankwaso or Kwankwaso members who are put a red cap. In fact, even before we joined the NNPP, the vast majority of people in this country believe in what we are preaching over the years. Many people, and most of them are not even put a red cap, but they have the Kwankwaso at heart. They believe that this country requires a very positive change, not the change that we had in 2015.
I asked that question because you and I obviously know what's happening in the Northeast, in the Northwest now, and most of the perpetrators of these acts of violence and terrorism are young people. I remember the last time I spoke with Sheikh Gumi, and he spoke about the fact that these young people are not being engaged, and that's why they're being, taken by these terrorists. So when you become president, if you become president, what would you do that has not been done? What do you see that can be done to deal with the insecurity, the level of insecurity that we're facing in 2022? Because it seems to be a different case in 2021, and of course this year it's a lot worse. The freshest, which is the train bombing, we still have those people in captivity, and of course the Methodist prelate who was also captured, who has regained his freedom, and he said succinctly that security agencies and the government did not help.
Yes, you see, the present administration, which started in 2015, actually missed many steps. They made some obvious mistakes. One is a government, one has to get the politics right. Once you miss that, many other things are likely going to go wrong. I'm sure I remember that this administration missed an opportunity to form government for almost 6 months. And that was a big mistake. And even when they formed the government, people were shocked because people believed that they would get better members of the cabinet. But in any case, it was formed after 6 months. And if you are in government at state level, even at national level, you have to carry all members along. And of course, not only members of your party. You need to carry everybody along in that constituency, either a country or in a state. So one has to get the politics right so that you can have maximum support of the people from top to bottom. If you miss that, then it affects other places. For example, if you alienate members of the society, the end product is always that the security themselves want the cooperation of the people. And if the people are not taken on board, they will find it very difficult, really, to give the required information, which is terrible in that case. In terms
So you're
of,
saying the people don't trust the government and security agencies?
well, that's what is happening now, to the extent that everybody, in fact, most people in those affected places know the bandits. They know where they are today. And of course, mistrust has been created between the people and even the security agencies, to the extent people fear that if they bring any information, that may likely affect them negatively, because people claim that there are similar cases in the past where people gave information and the bandits themselves came after those people. So government has to create good relationship, create confidence between the government itself and the people. And that will reflect in other agencies like security agencies themselves, and so on and so forth. And lack of getting the politics right also affect the economy in many ways. And that's why you find that so many things went wrong in the area of economy. Many people are not investing in the economy. So also people coming from abroad to invest in Nigeria also find it difficult to come in. And the government is not coming with a conducive environment for even the businesses themselves, to the extent that if you go out, you hardly see good economic activities, especially in the area of construction industry. So there are many issues, and all these issues put together are causing all these negative things, the issue of security itself, the issue of economy, and of course other vices that we see or that you mentioned in Northeast, in Northwest, and even across the country, where people, the young men, are taking arms against Nigerians. And that is why people believe that now we need a very formidable leadership, very capable leadership that can come and unite the country. Not as we see today, things are falling apart. Now we are in a situation where you hear people saying, oh, these ones are this tribe, those ones are that tribe.
You quickly played into my next question, because I was going to ask, I was interviewing the secretary of the Northern Elders Forum, and the doctor specifically said, I remember, that we need to phase out the old set of politicians, saying that, I want to quote him directly, that these politicians are responsible for the divisions that we have, whether they be ethnic, religious, or even political. What do you have to say about that?
No, phasing out the politicians is not the best. The old politicians, as you mentioned. You see, this time around, people have to look at the track record of all the politicians that are aspiring to go into positions, especially the executive arm of government, because that is probably the most important arm of government out of the three. Because if you get that one right, other two are certainly going to be good also. So I think that's what to require. We don't, this is not the time really for us to go and start any experiment. With some of the young men and women that we have seen taking power, especially at state level, some of them were a huge disappointment. People.
There are some who have been who have also done well. I mean, I think that Nigerians took a chance on your set of politicians, so why can't they take a chance on the young set of people? And most of them have worked for the old set of politicians.
That's what I'm saying. We have seen across the country, especially now, that we have many young men that are governors across the country. But you hardly see anyone that you can really call a very good example of youth taking power. So I believe that people should look for somebody who is strong enough to do the job, healthy enough to do the job, but experienced enough, somebody who has gone through what one can call a good governance over the years. That's why I think it's a matter of choice. And I'm so happy and glad to tell you that most Nigerians today have decided on what they are likely going to do in 2023.
Okay. Finally, let's go back to party politics. We've heard about a lot of mergers. I spoke to your party national chairman who alluded to the fact that there was not going to be a merger between you and the Labour Party. You know, we saw those mergers. But is the NNPP still open to a merger of sorts to empower and, you know, build the muscle of the third force?
Yes, you see, we are very comfortable with our position today. Within 3 months, we are able to be where we are. Today, we have a national party that is has leadership at all levels. Today, we have a national party that is not only in one region or in one zone.
But is it strong enough to defeat the APC and the PDP?
Oh, yes. You see, let me tell you, you see, most Nigerians, if you ask them out there, they will tell you that people are not too keen about party. And for us in NNPP, we had even wanted Nigerians to be keen about the party. Why? Because everybody knows that the two parties have failed. And therefore, if you take it from the party point of view, if they have failed, now people will go for the third force you mentioned, which certainly, by all standards, going by the quality of the leadership everywhere in this country, is the third force. Even though, on the other hand, we believe, even as of today, you'll be surprised if there is election today, if Nigerians are allowed to vote, you'll be surprised that most people will vote for NNPP because they want change. People are not comfortable with the status quo. And it is only people who believe that what is happening is good enough for them to continue would go and vote for PDP or even the APC itself. So we are comfortable as we stand today, but I can tell you the graph of NNPP is rising in the last 3 months. So we have another 9 months, and I can assure you that most Nigerians will be happy with the party and will be very happy also with the candidates that we are going to field in 2023.
Before I go, let me just push you one more question. Looking at the candidates that are being fielded, I mean, the PDP has already done its primary, so you know who the party's flag bearer is. But then, of course, the ruling party has so many presidential candidates, and we've seen the shifts in dates, but this weekend will determine. Does anybody on the list of people that I've mentioned pose a threat to you politically?
Not to my knowledge. You see, we are happy that PDP has done its own convention. We now have everybody now knows the presidential candidates. Very soon, I'm sure the APC will have to stop moving the goalpost, and they have to bring somebody. And I can tell you, all those that are contesting, most of them, if not all of them, are people that I know very well. And I can assure you that I don't see how any one of them can match the candidate of the NNPP. But in any case, I'm sure one of these days, when we have the candidate also from there, and all other parties for that matter, we'll have time to present ourselves to Nigerians, and Nigerians will make a choice, even though, as I told you, most people have already made up their minds on what to do.
Okay. Well, Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso is the presidential aspirant on the platform of the NNPP. It's been a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
All right. Well, it's been Plus Politics. I am Mariana Kon. We'll be back after this break. This is Plus. On the platform of the New Nigeria People.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@plustvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
So what are the top decisions that the United States considers necessary that Nigeria must take? I like to think of my interactions as conversations, not interviews. And that's why I say asking questions is both an art and a science. Everyone says in Islam, you are allowed to have 4 wives. To my conversations, I'm Angela Ajetumobi. Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to say. And yes, we are talking. It is important we drive the right conversation that informs, inspires, influences thought and action. If we say there's beauty in our diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture. We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation, as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
Hello and welcome to Space and Style, a property show designed to connect various stakeholders across the property value chain. We can also provide realistic solutions and deepen your knowledge about the interesting world of real estate. We shall showcase architectural design, interior design trends, lifestyle and real-time property news updates, and the right way to navigate through property development and investment. Join me every week on this channel as I take you through an exciting journey in the world of real estate.
Space and Style, 6:30 p.m. on Saturdays and 5:30 p.m. on Wednesdays.
In raising our kids, parents should stop playing God.
The internet is actually using the people.
But when you are looking for money to help other people, then it becomes easy.
Don't rush into marriage. I always say this. You rush in, you rush out. Family is the bedrock of every society and the essence of life.
On Today with John and Helen, we dig deep into family values in every sense of the word.
Join us every Saturday at 9:15 a.m. on Plus TV Africa, DSTV channel 408.
With you, we play a part in strengthening the values passed from generation to generation.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on Plus TV Africa.
This medal has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
We now start hearing the shoot of gun.
Whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways, where we talk about topic in the news as it affects us all. I am not Osayiwa Mesale. I am Uti Elu, and I am joined today by the one and only Manny Money. How are we doing?
Fine, thank you.
You had a better day than me, so let's not talk about my day.
No, I want you to talk about your day.
No, let's talk about your day. If I talk about my day, I might offend a lot of people. So
the mainlanders.
Let's talk about your day. How are you? How did your day go?
My day was all right. It was good. I'm just happy it's Friday.
Thank God it's Friday.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't feel like it, I've been running around like a mad hatter today.
And then you have a long day tomorrow.
I have a long weekend.
Yeah.
I won't even call it a day. So I think that come Monday I'll just be like, I feel like I put my hand in a socket and I'm just frazzled. But hopefully I'll get some rest, and
you'll be fine.
It's just you and I today, so
yeah,
we'll have interesting conversations, and I'm looking forward to our guest.
Yeah, me too.
Should be.
I have a lot of questions for her.
You do?
Yes,
awesome.
I do.
So I can chill a little bit. And
no, not really. Don't chill. Uchi, you can't
because
chill.
Ladies set me up yesterday. They were like, "What is the subject?" And I'm like, "Excuse me, BBLs. How am I this? Or how am I this?"
I saw your comment on the chat group.
And Elsie and Issy just literally set me up. But anyway, I'm sure.
But I'm sure it was interesting because I would have had quite a lot to say,
right?
When I saw it.
But anyway, I'm looking forward to what is going to be a very interesting show. So, our quote for today: "Being a great place to work is the difference between being a good company and a great company. And that's by Brian Christopher, the president and CEO of Upshot. I think that's that quote for me just says everything. Like, we hear today about a great place to work, great place to work. We talk about people or talent in the workplace being a lot more choosy about where they go. So you're an entrepreneur, you run your own business. What do you think about the quote?
Well, I think it makes sense. There really is a difference between I work in a very great place, but I don't think there are many people that can say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because,
sadly.
Yes, sadly, I don't think so. And I don't know if sadly is actually the word to use, because yesterday I heard someone say something that work is work, really. It's not a recreational center. Yeah, but it's good to have good energy around, good vibes, but like, oh, it's a great place. How many places are really, really that great? Come on.
But shouldn't that be what we strive for?
Strive for.
Because people spend so much of their time there.
Yes, that's why I said it should be good vibes around, positive environment, but great, like amazingly great. Like, come on, you're working. I'm not against it, Uti, but I'm just saying it's one that will be very, very hard to achieve. That's great. It'll be very hard to achieve.
So, I mean, it's interesting that you say that, because, I mean, I've worked in some really great places, and it wasn't that we didn't have work pressure or we didn't have, excuse me, deadlines or targets to meet.
Yeah.
I think it was for us, it was just a conscious effort. One, the culture in itself was well defined. So people who came into the organization were people who were a good fit for the culture. So we didn't have people who were the type of people that were work all the time.
Yeah.
So it was almost like I was having the conversation this morning with someone where I said the person was a technical fit, but they weren't a cultural fit. So it is possible.
Yeah, so it now comes down to the company. What do they prefer? Do they prefer the cultural fit
you would take
or
a technical fit, of course, because you need somebody who's competent.
Yeah.
But you can also choose to then add an added layer and look for a technical fit. But anyway, these are things that we'll talk about. The importance of workplace culture is growing fast in terms of job seekers looking for conscious workplaces and companies that communicate their values externally. We've seen how common toxic work cultures can be and how they've led to real consequences for business reputations. So Nanke Essien is here to discuss work culture and the impact on business sustainability. But first, we'll take a break to see what we found in the news. Stay with us. So getting your first bicycle and learning how to ride it is a rite of passage for almost all of us. Despite the marks and scabs from falling from our bicycles whilst learning, it is a memory we always cherish. Bicycling is quite a useful activity in the hustle and bustle of today's world. Bicycling allows us to exercise our muscles, cut back on fuel consumption as it's quite a popular alternative to driving a car, and also the ability to feel the wind in our hair. The United Nations established World Bicycle Day for many reasons. As basic as it is, the impact of the bicycle on society is quite transformative. Even the poorest people get access to basic transport with the bicycle. So, are you a bicycle rider, Manny Money?
I love riding bicycles.
Really?
Yeah, whenever I can, which sometimes can be maybe like twice a year.
Really? Yeah. Nigeria's not really an environment for bicycles. I mean, I remember, so I'm an 80s child. So BMX was all the rage when I was growing up, and I wanted a bicycle. I finally got the BMX for my birthday. I rode it, I fell off it, and I never got back on it. So till today,
Imagine.
I don't know how to ride a bicycle. So
no,
I can skate.
I can ride a bicycle very well.
No, so I just never tried and never got back on it. So even now, trying to teach my son as well, I'm making that conscious effort to say, okay, I'm going to teach him to ride a bicycle and, you know, get him not to be like his mother and be able to ride a bicycle.
Yes, I think you should do that.
I think given the topics that mean, what is in the news at the moment with the Okada ban and, you know, the stories that we're going to take in a minute, I think it's nice that today's World Bicycle Day and we can maybe start to look to bicycles as solutions for people who are talking about ways to get around in the face of no Okada. But anyway, I'll let you take your story first.
Okie dokie. Okada riders sue Lagos State government. So the Lagos State government has been dragged to court by trustees of Motorcycle Transport Union of Nigeria following the ban on operation of commercial motorcyclists. That's the Okada riders, they are fondly known. So defendants in the suits are Lagos State Attorney General, Commissioner for Justice, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Lagos State Task Force, Commissioner of Police, Lagos State, and Commissioner for Transport, Lagos State. So aside from asking for a declaration that the ban on commercial motorcycles is illegal, unlawful, and unconstitutional, the applicants also asked the court to declare that the purported proposed ban on commercial motorcycle transportation in Lagos State by the governor without hearing from the operators whose rights are affected or likely to be affected is a violation of the constitutional rights of the applicants to fair hearing provided for in Section 36 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. They also prayed for a declaration that the ban on the business of commercial motorcycles transportation in Lagos by the government is a violation of the rights of the applicants guaranteed by Section 33 of the 1999 Constitution, who cannot be alive without food and other means of sustenance, and whose income is the business of commercial motorcycle transportation. So they prayed that the government to restrict Okada operations on major highways to approved areas rather than banning their operations outrightly.
So before I take that, I take my comment about the story, I'm going to speak because my story is linked as well. And my headline says, Lagos begins crushing of 2,000 impounded Okadas. So it says the Lagos State government today, Friday, began crushing the apprehended vehicles. So in the 72 hours since the ban commenced, 2,000 Okadas have been seized. And the government's approach to ensuring that these bikes don't make it back onto the road is to crush them and essentially ensure that they're no longer usable. Now, whilst this is one solution, there is the phrase that says there are many roads to get to a market. They say they're doing this because somehow in the past these Okadas have always wound up back on the road.
Yes.
And I mean, I've said this before, where I think that this solution, this ban is an unimaginative solution. But what makes it worse is that in an economy like this, where you've seized these, first of all, you changed your policy, so you banned the Okadas.
Yeah.
So you've thrown a whole industry. This is who the people that are suing, right? The motorcycle transportation part of your transportation industry. You've essentially taken the legs out from a certain set of them in these 6 local governments. Now, yes, you've issued a ban. They broke the law. It was impounded after the ban, according to the story. But here's my question. When you decided to put a ban in place, how did we expect these people to recover? Some of these bikes are leased, they're on hire purchase. People have spent money to buy the bikes. Now, you crushing 2,000 bikes, I think those bikes average, I think they said about 400 or 600,000 for one. You crushing 2,000 bikes. Think of the Naira value, even with depreciation, think of the Naira value of these bikes. How could we have been more creative? There are other states that haven't banned Okadas. There are other local governments. Maybe you say, okay, let's take Lagos off the table because maybe eventually the government will ban all of them. But could we not generate some funds from these bikes rather than just destroying them? And then the people who are now suing the government, was there engagement that said, okay, we will compensate you? It's just like today, if the government is going to build a road and they're going to break your house, they require, there's some compensation. Do we have a conversation that says, you know what, we're not just going to take away your livelihood without having a conversation from where we go from here? Can we give you something? Is it a token to say, okay, let's get you started? Or can we even talk about building your skills in something else? But let's do something to support these people. It's not just about taking away their source of income, because we've talked a lot of the times, and the last couple of times that we've talked about this, we keep talking about the impact on insecurity, crime, but these are people, and we have to apply some level of empathy to their plight. Whether you think that they're a blight on the roads or traffic or whatever, they are still human beings. So I just find that when I saw the story where crushing 2,000, I'm like, how, like literally, why? Could you not even think about neighboring African countries and maybe we could say, like, it just is so unimaginative. Oh, we don't, it's like the government is just saying, no, we can't keep law and order. We seize bikes, but we know that somehow they'll get back onto the street, so let's destroy them. But anyway, I just find it...
For me, I'm going to sound kind of heartless now with what I'm going to say, but I'm a lawyer, so I just go straight to what the law says. Section 46 of the Lagos State Transport Sector Reform Law 2018 and Section 15 of the regulation prohibits the operation of motorcycles and tricycles that are 200cc engine capacity, that's lower. And if you have to, it has to be for mail delivering, that's dispatch riders. You must have that box, the mail box at the back of it. So
when the bikes came into play, I hear you, and the law is the law. But if the government allowed Okada riders, if this law has been in place since 2018,
yes,
and the government allowed Okada riders to get to the extent where we can seize 2,000 in a few days, then you've already failed at implementing the law.
They are not even denying that.
Hey, so that's my point.
What I'm saying is the fact that they've already failed doesn't mean they should keep failing.
So you are a lawyer,
yes,
right? So how many people know that this law exists? So if
ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Exactly. So my point is, you want to uphold a law. You make sure that the law is there. Don't forget that this is not the first time it was
the
banned.
law is there. It's because, yes, we know that the issue we have in Nigeria is execution.
Exactly.
So we have that.
So there's a failure point. Now, when you have failed, you can't impose your failure on somebody else. You have to be able to, there's give and take. These are human beings. So you failed, you can get away with failing with no consequences.
But guess what?
Which is why it's good they're suing them. You can get away with, yes, because you can get away with failing with no consequences. So you've woken up now in 2022 to decide now you must ban.
You know, see, the motorcycle was never part of the master plan for transportation in Lagos State. It was never part of it. You understand? So now there are laws backing that up as well. It is what it is.
Well,
as heartbreaking as it is what it is.
You never can win an
argument. And then when we look, no, honestly, when we now look at the increase in crime rate, we look at loss of property, loss of lives.
It's okay.
No,
it's okay. Like I said,
I think it's a good thing.
Let's take a short break and let's come back to our topic for today. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. According to the Sacramento Business Journal, the business world is overrun with buzzwords and catchphrases, and it's easy to get jaded when new terms become the flavor of the week. But while most of them fade away, just as quickly as they emerge, a small handful are actually meaningful and become a permanent part of the lexicon. One of these terms is sustainability, which has rapidly become part of the DNA of companies around the world in every industry. But sustainability goes way beyond just having environmentally friendly policies and goes right to the heart of our organization, is what it represents. And a strong commitment to sustainability is a powerful tool that forward-thinking companies are using to build world-class teams. What impact do you think work culture has on sustainability? Please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 0818-038-4663, or you can tweet at us as Wayshow Africa 1 with the hashtag Wayshow. So, Nanke Essien is a business improvement consultant, and she joins us today with a mission to renew, transform, and preserve owner-led businesses in Africa. She's the lead strategist at CISA, a management consulting company focused on providing integrated business transformation and HR services, mainly to owner-led businesses in sub-Saharan Africa for peak performance and sustained business results, leveraging core research and experiential knowledge. So Nanke believes strongly that the work environment can be fulfilling for both the founder and all employees, that owner-led businesses have the capacity to maintain excellence 250 years from inception, wow, and have the potential to be successful second and third generation businesses. She firmly believes that businesses in Africa deserve a consistent flow of high-performing employees capable of consistently delivering business results. And this commitment is evident in all areas of the core advantage VPC transformation system and its successful coaching programs, which has helped entrepreneurs eliminate overwhelm and maintain dominance in their niche. Her works have been showcased on various national newspapers, digital platforms and talk shows, including the Vanguard newspaper, She Leads Africa, Social Media Week Lagos, Business Day CEO Magazine, Africa Business Radio, Arise TV, Shepreneur with BC Ubo and TAAS, and so much more. So whilst we take a short break so that Nanke can join us, we'll be right back.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, then go beat you. Now 2,500 they pay.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the Babin, I pay my rent. From the Babin, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
Thank you for joining us. So we're still talking work culture and the impact on business sustainability. So I'll come to Manny quickly. Again, What's the culture like at your organization?
Don't put me on the spot. So what I know is just that work culture is the attitude and behaviors of staff, that's employees and employers, within an organization. And I think everything just depends on a number of factors, like the company's policy, their values, their mission, their vision, their goals. So these are driving forces when it comes to work culture. And these things create a negative working environment or a positive. So I would like to think that mine is positive, because I know at least the downers, the ones that create the negative work culture. And an example of that is companies where they promise and fail. Promise to do stuff and say, oh, if you hit this target, I'm going to do this for you, and then they keep hitting targets and then nothing happens, and it just discourages.
So we don't have a culture of trust.
Thank you. So then we have the culture of late coming. That I really have a question. I would like to know.
So do you have a HR person?
Yes, of course we do.
Okay. Is an employee handbook?
Oh yes, we do.
So I'm trying to decide to see the little places where culture may be
don't worry,
we're fine. But thank you for sharing that. I think that culture is one of those things that we take for granted. I think that we assume that everybody does certain things. So I work in customer experience, and people assume that because you work in customer service, you should know to smile, you should know to greet, you should know to engage. Amazing how most of those things don't come through.
Of course.
People just come from different backgrounds. So important that you don't just assume that culture, whether it be from your tribe, your race, your family, that translates to what you want in an organization. So we're looking at what the organizational culture is and how we define that. But before I stray too much into what is one of the things that I'm very passionate about, I really am passionate about organizational culture, I'll bring in our guest. So I've already read Nanke's profile. It's a very heavy, powerful,
very long
profile. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be back here again, and we're talking about one of my favorite topics in the whole wide world, which is organizational culture. Everywhere you turn around, everyone talks about culture, but I'm sure we can all tell on this table that there is a big gap between what we say about culture and what we do about culture.
Yes.
And it's important for us to be able to demystify this particular gap so we can get the best out of it. I mean, our topic talks about culture as it relates to sustainability. So we know that culture plays an active role when you want to build a long-term business or a sustainable business. So the question, like you said earlier, is that why do we take it for granted?
Yeah.
So I want to start with the concept of great, because Mani has already shared her thoughts around that. And today in Nigeria, we have a serious brain drain problem. Now applicants, it's no longer the employer's market. Now it's the employee's market, right? And talent are really out there looking for the best companies to work at. And so this concept of the great place to work is now a real, I don't know if it's a buzzword, I don't know whether it's a real thing. I have my own views, but I want to hear from you, your thoughts around the concept of a great place to work and how culture fits into that.
Okay, so a great place to work is realizable, is doable. Do we have a lot of those as references within the ambits of this country? The answer is really no, but can it be done? Absolutely yes. And I feel that where culture plays into this area we're speaking about is even in understanding what culture is in the first place. For instance, if you go on Google and you're looking for the definition of culture, you find something around the lines of culture is the way of life of a certain type of people. But you realize that within an organization, there are multiple people in that environment who have already been influenced by their own environment, so genetics or people or things or significant experiences around them. And so if it's a way of life of people, it's of which people. So if it is not systemized and if it is not defined, we cannot be talking about it. Because if you have to build sustainability, there has to be a systemic way, methodical way of getting things done. And you find that in many organizations, there's a methodical way for sales and marketing, for finance, for budgeting. But we talk about culture as a great factor for sustainability, but you literally do not have a system for culture. So if it is not systemized, there's no way that you can build longevity. And something that systemization does for you is that it's replicable whether you are there or not. It is tangible as well whether you are there or not, and it gives room for you to be able to transfer it from persons to persons. So when culture is not systemized, when it's not even understood, and I'm sure we'll talk about the definition of culture, that is easier for everybody to grasp and make sense out of. Because sometimes when we lose the essence of the definition of something, or our definition does not carry the essence of that tool, it's almost impossible to leave it out. So you would find that if this does not happen, you cannot start talking about the concept of great. It's a concept that is interesting, that is exciting, but if it's not systemized, you cannot achieve it.
Okay. So I think that what I would take from that is culture is a huge part of the concept of great place to work, but it's not the only thing. So the processes are there, or the systemizing is there. But I'll let Mani jump in.
Okay, so how would we improve the culture in a small environment? Let's take like SME companies. I'm not talking about the big ones, because I know the things that go into improving culture, organizations' culture in a very big companies, they have the budget for it. So with SMEs, how do you, make intentionally increase the work culture? So
like I mentioned before, let's start from the definition of culture itself.
Okay.
Right. Culture, for my own definition, TM please. So culture is typically the behavior that brings the vision to life. When you think about it that way, it's easier to grasp. The reason being that behavior is something we can all connect to, right? When you say it's a way of life or any other definition, it's difficult to place myself in that scenario and see me working it. But when you say culture is the behavior that brings the vision to life, we can all agree on the behavior. And that means that there must also be a vision that is clear enough. Because if we cannot define the outcome, we cannot scale back and decide what steps we are going to take to bring the outcome to life.
Definitely.
A lot of times you find that most organizations seem to have a vision, but most times it's very superficial. Sometimes it's borrowed. Sometimes it's designed out of the need to feed my stomach. Sometimes it's defined out of the need to just do something. And so if the foundation of the business, and funny enough, like I was about to say, culture plays a role in the foundational pieces of an organization. So if my vision by itself is already skated or it's already shaky ab initio, it's almost impossible to start building the foundations or the building blocks of culture.
Let me just interject.
Yes,
you said something about if it's about stomach infrastructure, it'll be very hard to build.
Absolutely, long term.
Okay, so the driving force must not be monetary.
Because the truth of the matter is that when your vision is outside of you and it seeks to solve a problem, I mean, there's no way light will shine if there's no darkness.
Yeah,
so if it is not outside of you and it's not solving the problem, I mean, when you're solving the problem, you get rewarded in it. So the stomach infrastructure is a very happy side effect. It will definitely happen as long as you're driven by a need to solve a problem for a set of people, and those people recognize it. Then it becomes a vision that is formidable. And that way, whether there are environmental issues, I was going to share a story, but let me keep that to later on. But whether it's environmental issues or it's public health issues, as we've seen in recent times, you can tweak your strategy, but then the destination is still very valid and destination is still very known to everyone. So back to your question about integrating culture in a small organization, it starts from identifying where exactly are we going, and then identifying those behaviors that help us get there, and then identifying how those behaviors will help us get there. That's where processes comes into place. And then how do we hold those processes accountable, and how do we then review those processes to make sure we are continuously improving them? That's pretty much how it works. Because culture is not finite. It's not something you define today and just assume that it stays there forever. It's infinite because you're building a long-term game. And that's the outlook, again, small organizations need to also have, because by the moment you start to see things as, oh, it's short-term or it's just a small business, then it never really grows beyond where it's supposed to go.
I agree.
Okay, so I want to come into the organizational culture itself. Like I said before, culture already exists, whether it's in your family, your tribe. You come into an organization. So first of all, for that culture to exist in that collective, in the context of the organization, it has to be taught and it has to be learned. What, in light of what you've already said about understanding that there has to be a vision, and then you have to look at the behaviors that get you there, what are the best ways to then take all of that and teach it so that it is learned? Can anybody be taught a culture? Because I like the recruiting style that looks at technical fit and then culture fit. But what do you think? Can anybody be taught to fit into the culture of an organization, or are there just people that, you know what, it's rather just don't bring them in?
So I was going to leverage that response you gave about technical fit and cultural fit. One of the subsets in my definition of culture is also understanding the personality in your organization. So I'll give a clear example. So a few days ago, I did a personality test for a client of mine, and we figured out that himself and his PA had the same personality type. Now, what this meant was that his strengths were her strengths and his weaknesses were her weaknesses.
Wow.
So the things that he was trying to hire for, to help him to fix, she wasn't able to fix because they have the same personality type. So imagine that we do not understand culture as the personality of the organization. It becomes a problem, because half the time when you're listening to people complaining that my staff members are not performing well, and you're pushing them, and in turn they are not excited about it. So yes, can culture be taught? The answer is actually yes, and the reason is that it has to be it has to mean something higher for me. It has to be a higher purpose. That's why your culture must transcend just from words to beliefs. We will talk about values, but values have to be workable, because values are very abstract. What integrity means to you is not what it means to me as well. So they are very abstract. So it has to be a moving part, right? And that's why I hinge on that word behavior. So from the recruitment aspect, we are thinking, do you have the exact behavior required for us to push this vision forward? If you do not, we do not need you here. But if you do, we can help you within the ambit of where you are within the organization to know how it is done. And that's why HR must take interest in onboarding. Most times when you do the first onboarding, exciting. Second one is exciting. Third one, you start to lose the essence of onboarding. And that's pretty much your first step to reintroduce the person, because don't forget that we are onboarding adults who already have a way of life, who already have beliefs, who already have values, and who, like you said earlier, have even had bad experiences in their previous organizations, and those experiences form their take on how they would react and all that. And once we give room, even the tiniest room for subjectivity, or the tiniest room for non-excitement, it permeates, and that's how subcultures begin to build within organizations as well. So yes, it can be taught, but the initial place is that whoever is coming in has the requisite behavior to help us drive this vision. All we are doing is to mold them and treat them the way that it works for our environment, because the way culture works in your environment is different from the way it works in yours as well, even if we have the same products in the market or similar types of products.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll tie culture to sustainability. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Thank you.
If you're just tuned in, we are discussing work culture and the impact on business sustainability. We still love to hear what you have to say, so remember you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 0818-038-4663. Tweet at us at Waste Show Africa 1 with the hashtag Waste Show. I'll come back to the conversation we were talking about sustainability. Now, sustainability in itself has become a bit of a buzzword.
I agree with you.
It's everywhere. It started out with green policies, and then today it's also. So I think that we should even just clarify what sustainability is in reality.
So let's just call sustainability long term, because the actual word is sustained.
Yes.
That's the actual word, not sustained. When you talk about, if you go online now and seek sustainability, you're seeing climate change, green world, blah, blah. So the actual word is sustained. So how do you sustain this particular success? How do you make it infinite such that it continues to metamorphose into what it is supposed to be? Because it doesn't end, right? So it's actually sustained, that is the word. And your culture is, the operating system behind your phone is what makes your phone to have the longer shelf life, or to make your phone to consistently be and do everything it was designed to be. So think of your culture as the operating system behind the mentality in your organization. And if that comes into play, you find that long term you begin to do work activities or create programs that help your business to be long term and sustained. So think about an organization, for instance, who wants to change the paradigm in terms of hiring people, this particular generation that's a bit shaky when it comes to the workplace. And let's assume that part of the problems that maybe they have, for instance, in the US, where they have student loans to pay. And part of your culture is part of your goal for that period is to attract these people. As a cultural program, you could say to yourself, you know what, we're going to attract people and let them know that we're going to pay 3 months off that particular student loan that they have. that is you creating a program to extend your culture. In that way, when people come into that environment, they come loyal to that environment because this is going on. They have said what they will do, and they have done it, right? And so when we think about the concept of sustained business, it is not short term, it is not finite, it is infinite. So your programs continue to evolve as the people need to continue to evolve. That means that you must put your ears down to the stakeholders. Stakeholders being the employees, stakeholders being your customers, stakeholders being your vendors. Because for culture to be sustained, data is extremely important.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have any form of feedback from anybody and you create programs that do not make sense to your people, which a lot of people do, for instance, when it comes to reward, I just assume that once I buy small chops on Friday, that's what people want. No. You have to pay attention to the needs of your people. So putting your ears down, and a lot of times
but buying small
impatience
chops is good.
is good, yeah. You know, sometimes impatience, and people can get lethargic to it as well. They just do what they want to do. So I remember one of my clients I was speaking to, he just said, oh, you know what, we'll just give a bonus every 3 months. And I said, what is the premise for giving the bonus? Now, it may sound like, oh, people need extra money and they want that, but what that will look like if you do not consult them, that you have extra and you're giving them stipends from whatever is extra, and that will build lethargy. Something that's supposed to build excitement will build lethargy. So putting your ears down, in fact, there's one of my clients who did that thing for, and we said to the customers at the end of each email, my CEO reads any email, so whether you want to complain or whether you want to be excited, just send an email, my CEO will open it, and they CC the CEO in every email. And customers are so excited about that. You know, people like to report. So people are very excited about that, and they send back feedback. From those feedback, they're able to create, you know, newer products and newer solutions. And the audience are like, oh my God, these people thought about me. It's just simple feedback. So for your culture to align with your sustained goals, there has to be the establishment of the goals. There has to be the understanding of your fundamentals and the behaviors, like I mentioned before. There has to be a systemic way of gathering data so that you're consistently refreshing and reviewing all the programs that aid your culture to grow. So for small organizations, like you mentioned before, it's not necessarily about having big budgets, right? It's pretty much about listening to data and recreating. So again, it might be that you're doing the same thing over and over again, but doing it better, or finding better ways to shorten the process, or finding better ways to serve your customer. That's innovation in itself. It doesn't mean I have to go and create a new product or bring something really mind-blowing. It's just doing the same thing. Yeah. Brian taught us that as well. You know, he would say he continued learning the toss or the dunk until it became muscle memory. So wherever he found the ball, his hand just typically just went to do it. And so when we think about the concept of innovation as it relates to culture, it's not necessarily about doing something. You can be doing the same old thing, finding ways to shorten the process, finding ways to make it better as well. And I think the last thing I forgot to mention was accountability. We can't build culture without actually measuring if it's working or not.
Yeah, that was my question. How do you directly measure?
Exactly, because and that's why you create programs, because culture as itself can be abstract. It can be intangible if you do not create programs around it. So your programs must match what you say, right? Must match the values, must match your fundamentals as well. So once the programs match it, it's easier for you to say, okay, who has or who hasn't, who has lived this exact part of our culture, who hasn't, and please reward them.
So when you say build programs, because I like things to be very clear.
Yes, please.
What do you mean?
Okay, so what I mean, for instance, if you say, let me give an example. Like I mentioned before with the school loans, right? If part of it is to ensure that you're building a community of young, vibrant people, and maybe you find that based on data, one of their issues is to do what I mentioned earlier, and you create a reward program around it, whereby if they stay with you for 3 months, you are able to pay their student tuition. That's a program you can mention. If, for instance, you say diversity and inclusion is part of your, how many diversity programs have you actually done? If you look at statistics of male and female within your environment, if we look at statistics of different types of people, I'm not trying to mention them, in your environment, how do you actually track that? If you say you're a community-based organization, how many community projects have you actually done? How many departments within your organization have even brought up community-based programs that we can actually see and we can measure to say, oh, this is rolling towards, or this is counting towards our culture goals? Because you must also have goals across your culture if you want it to grow and if you want it to be sustained.
Yes, I've heard a lot, and I still go back to talking about the SMEs, because you said something that made so much sense just now. You talked about different departments coming up with, community projects. So how about companies that will say this is eating into the time, of the company's production or production time? Or production or wallets. That's why I talked about budgets before. What would you say about that?
So the truth of the matter is that you can't continue pushing and pushing and pushing without receiving. at some point when you keep pushing people to work and work and work and work and work, you find that people get tired at the end of the day. And that's just putting it mildly. People get burnt out and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And at that point, you cannot get the best out of them. So why don't you break into knowledge sharing sessions that become a part of your program, maybe every last Friday of the month? Why don't you break into, if a particular department has a problem, the department must not solve the problem. At your Monday meetings, you put it into your, what I call your IDS, identify, discuss, and solve your problem right there and then. That's part of you getting feedback and you also communicating. And it doesn't cost anything. You know, how about you saying that versus you solving the problem as a CEO, you throw it out to people and then the best team who comes up with the best solution. Because so it's part of RAID. Because again, when we talk about culture, it's still community.
It's still part of inclusiveness.
Yes, it's still community. So when you talk about community and you don't do things to engage people, you know, it's only the CEO who has final say or who can make decisions. You find that you're not growing anybody. And if you're too full yourself, nothing else comes in. And you find that you're not able to grow people and you see that your environment becomes still and stagnant.
Thank you very much. You are the new Uti on the show. You have not allowed Uti say anything. And
because she's actually speaking my mind. So
she's just saying everything.
She's now gotten to the point where the next question, you've actually now touched on it, because I was going to speak about a little while back we had the horrible bosses hashtag trending, and you can't talk about culture without talking about when it goes wrong and the extreme toxicity that we can see in some workplaces. So how do we've now talked about defining the right culture, processes, and sustainability. How do we then stop it from going wrong and degenerating into that toxicity? Because it obviously happens more often than not. So how do we prevent that?
First things first, let me be a bit empathetic. One thing that we must realize first of all is that not everybody should be a CEO. Okay. That's the first thing that we must realize. And that's why I mentioned personality, because personality starts from the top and really scales down. I remember sometime, even I started to imbibe the behavior of my direct boss, right, at some point, because that was the most dominant behavior in my environment. But was it yielding the right results? Maybe not, but it happened over time, right? So in this scenario, before we even get to the point of toxicity, we must define what we want in our environment. And people need to be true to themselves. If you cannot really uphold the standard of culture within your environment, let it go for someone else who can. And that's why you have culture custodians within your organizations who not necessarily act as policemen, but track and check what is going on, feel the pulse of the environment. People are lethargic to surveys, so I won't even suggest surveys, except let me not go into that yet. I'm not endorsing any program, any product here. But I mean, there are some products out there that help with anonymous surveys where you just feel the pulse of people indirectly. So versus saying, how is your boss treating you today? You can ask the question, do you have a headache? Do you understand? Just by the number of people who reference the fact that they have a headache within your organization, you can tell that something is really out of place. And if HR truly comes with recommendations, please pay attention to it. Because again, like I said, there's a huge gap between what we say about culture and what we do about culture. I remember hiring a girl from one of these, new generation companies. And I really thought, she would have very non-traditional views. And I remember the first time I said to her, why are you leaving this place? It seems like a progressive environment. And she said, I don't understand why you go into the office, some people are lying down on the floor doing their work, others are listening to music. And I looked at her like, is that not what you guys really want? And the girl says, no, because I need to think and concentrate. And that's why the concept of personality when it comes to culture, we cannot run away from it. So not everybody is designed to be a CEO. At the moment when you have your culture police, which sometimes in some cases might be HR, I don't really suggest that it's HR because sometimes
you'd be surprised.
And in some cases, but I mean, I'm not generalizing. That's why I didn't say it, because I'm not generalizing. But I would assume that you have a culture police, and then you have the fundamentals that you're tracking. Once you see those things going out of line, please check it and let's address it immediately. Because the moment you allow it to fester, I remember one of my colleagues then, he and his boss or the CEO at the time, they had different ideas of what the goals for his particular unit was. So the CEO was looking to get maybe like 100 million, just putting conservatively as his goal. And this guy kept bringing 10K type jobs, 1 million type jobs. And the CEO was telling me, there's something wrong with you. This thing is not even amounting to a tiny speck of what I truly want in my organization. He did it the first time, brought something he thought was huge, wasn't huge to the CEO, second time, third time. Now what did that do for him? He went back to his team and said this CEO is totally unresponsive, and so the CEO noticed for a while, nobody kept coming to him, nobody brought to him new ideas, nobody wanted to sit with him. And so that guy, by virtue of allowing that thing to happen, just created his own pseudo culture. And before you know what happened, they had their own clan, their own community, their own way of life. So even if HR was bringing like progressive ideas and suggestions, you see them being averse to it.
But so that's the thing that, and that brings me back to the question I asked, because you're giving 2 examples now of this pseudo culture and the lady who you expected to have it to be a certain type of culture fit and she wasn't. So again, should those people remain in the organization? Is it redeemable? Can I bring you to my side to learn the culture, or do I at some point take a decision and say, you know what, this person clearly is the wrong fit for this organization?
If you do have the patience to keep them, yes, you do. But if not, you need to clearly explain to them that this place will not enhance your competencies and your skill, because we'll keep grinding on a frictionless ground and cause more injuries. Right. Now, if it is a role, if it's an opportunity where you can move the person to a certain role where maybe they have client facing or behind the scenes and they seem like people that you can teach over time, then that can happen. But if you're a fast-paced organization, don't try it. I'm sorry. I know people will lose their jobs, but please don't try it. Try to reorganize this person and put them in different roles within the organization. If that doesn't work, you need to clearly let them understand, not you are fired, but that this environment will not heighten your competencies or increase your skills. And I think you should find another place that will help you do that. That's just the best thing to do to save yourself. So your problem of toxicity begins even from recruitment, right? Aside from talking about, aside from the top, it starts from recruitment. So a lot of times we don't ask scenario-based questions, and even when we do, we are only asking questions we find on Google.
Does HR ask even questions, understand?
Hey, don't say it. Don't say it in public. Ask questions that are related to your organization. Ask questions that will help you understand how they solve problems, even with their younger ones at home. Just ask questions that are unorthodox, that are not necessarily work-related, because their CV already shows that they are technically sound, quote-unquote, and that's why they even got into the interviews in the first place. So you need to think about these soft salient issues that can go ahead and cause issues, in your organization. So if your organization is one organization where you guys are family and friends and happy and excited, somebody with a dominant personality might not necessarily fit into that environment. They may be the best, but it may not fit, because they will cause more harm than good. Do you understand? And they keep pushing people and wanting people to do more, and then causing more friction.
To isolate your
you can't even start doing that. Do you understand? If you start doing that, you're already causing problems from the issue. So you have to make a decision, and that's why your recruitment policy is also very important. I was happy you mentioned policies. Very important. If it says we cannot compromise, because think of culture as a product. It's a great product. If you have a great product, you can hire the right people, because automatically, if you tell somebody, oh, my friend works in Google, for instance, everybody wants to make friends with that person because, oh, it's presumed to be a great place to work. Do you understand? So if you have your culture as a great product, it's easier for you to attract people that are similar and are like you. And if you have a great product, you don't hide it. So everything around you shows the kind of culture you have. And the ones that are not a fit will be repelled. The ones that are supposed to be a fit will come in.
Awesome. So I did promise you that the time would fly by.
I know.
So
Are we done?
We are almost done. I love the fact that when you said something earlier, you were like TM. So you have a few golden nuggets in there that you've just when I need to drop something like it's hot, I just drop it as well. So I'm going to give you 1 minute just to quickly close off. I was going to ask you, in your opinion, maybe a company that has really great culture today, but we don't have the time. So let me just give you 1 minute to round off your golden nuggets around culture and sustainability.
Okay. So culture is the most important, I dare say, is the spirit of an organization. Anything that needs to have life needs to have a spirit, and your culture is the spirit of an organization. You need to pay attention to it. Take some time today to define what you want your environment to look like from the client's perspective, from the employee's perspective, and from even your generation's perspective. And when you do that, it's easier for you to create the sort of environment that you want, to identify the kind of processes and policies that will help you get there. And please also be accountable. One thing I would also say is that create good experiences for your people. If you do not create good experiences for your people, you cannot get the dividends of culture. And because we have identified that culture is a very important factor in creating sustainability, systemize it, because there's no way you can build a lasting structure without systems in it. Thank you.
Awesome. That's a fantastic roundup. Manny?
Fantastic. I think for me, I'm just going to take away what she said. One of the last things that she said, I just think it was just profound.
imagine the culture is a product. I think that that's powerful. So when we think about products, we know what it is that we want to sell. It's easier to think about it as a product because it's easier to push that. So I think that's my takeaway. And then the fact that you said that culture is the personality of the vision, outstanding.
Awesome. I think that we've had an interesting conversation. For Manny said, for me, it is. Uti is not saying much today. It's not. It's a thing that I love. And then you've just found somebody who's just reiterating all the things and aligning. So it's fantastic. I always sing the song. I work in customer experience, and culture is the foundation for that. So I'm with you. I hear everything that you said, and I've actually learned quite a few things. So I'm going to go back and watch this later again and maybe take some notes. But really, thank you for sharing your thoughts. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. Manny, as always, great to be on the show with you. Thank you so much. So before we go, please ensure that you follow us on all our social media platforms. On Instagram, it's @WasteShowAfrica. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and most importantly, follow all our social media engagements. And please remember to like, share, comment, and invite your friends and family to watch. We're on YouTube. You can share, and share again. But if you missed today's quote, here it is again. Being a great place to work, the difference between being a good company and a great company. On that note, we say we'll see you again on Monday at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Thank you.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408 or send an email to marketing@plustvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on Plus TV Africa.
And now, let's join ace broadcaster Mamode Akuga as he takes us inside the Niger Delta.
Hello out there and welcome to the program. It's Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region. I'm your regular host, Mamode Akuga. Today's package is centered on politics and development in the Niger Delta, and we kickstart with a report on the conduct and outcome of the just concluded governorship primary elections of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) across oil-rich states of the region.
On Wednesday, 25th of May 2022, the People's Democratic Party (PDP) conducted its governorship primary elections nationwide to allow for the emergence of candidates in the 2023 general elections. Before this time, governors of three major oil-producing states in the Niger Delta, namely Akwa Ibom, Delta and Rivers, had disclosed their preferred governorship candidates against the wish of other aspirants and major power brokers in their respective states. But as things turned out, all three governors were able to pull strings to ensure victory for their anointed candidates in the PDP governorship primaries. In Akwa Ibom State, Mr. Umo Eno, a former Commissioner of Lands and Water Resources who was personally anointed by Governor Udom Emmanuel as his preferred candidate, emerged as standard bearer of the PDP. Eno polled 993 votes out of a total votes cast of 1,018 votes to beat his closest rivals Onofiok Luke and Akan Okon in the contest. The PDP governorship candidate in Akwa Ibom State at the end of the exercise said as the next governor of Akwa Ibom State, his administration would focus on development and not indulge in acrimonious politics.
We will not besmirk character or the reputation of our opponents. We will not indulge in unsanitized rhetoric. We will focus on the issues that will elevate and hold aloft the ideals of development of our unity and our common purpose and our common essence.
In Delta State, Right Honorable Sheriff Oborewori, Speaker of the Delta State House of Assembly, who clinched the PDP governorship ticket with 597 votes out of 824 votes, had dedicated his victory to God.
I'm very happy, but I've come to return the glory to God. He is the author and finisher of our faith. God has done very well for us in this state.
The outcome of the PDP governorship primary election in Delta State was allegedly stage managed by Governor Okowa to ensure victory for his preferred candidate, Right Honorable Sheriff Oborewori. One of the governorship aspirants, Kenneth Gbagi, had alleged that Governor Okowa paid huge sums of money to delegates to secure votes for his preferred candidate. In a letter dated 21st of May 2022 and addressed to National Chairman of the PDP, Chief Gbagi, a former Minister of Education, also indicated his withdrawal from the governorship race on account of alleged threat to his life. In neighboring Rivers State, immediate past Accountant General of the state, Similaye Fubara, a preferred candidate of Governor Nyesom Wike, defeated 13 other aspirants, including former secretary to the Rivers State government, Tami Dana Gogo, and immediate past chairman of the PDP in the state, Felix Obua, to emerge as governorship candidate of the party. In his acceptance speech, Similaye Fubara, a dark horse in the politics of Rivers State, who polled 721 votes out of a total votes cast of 898 votes, said he didn't intend to contest the governorship election and therefore had no development blueprint for Rivers State at the time of his emergence as governorship candidate of the PDP.
I honestly don't know where to start. I wish I had planned this for 20 years, then I would have been more prepared. And the truth about it is, this is at work. I can't tell you I've prepared a manifesto. It's not a night of manifesto. And it's a night to tell you we are going to work together to sustain the special and wonderful things this present administration has already done for us.
For his part, Governor Nyesom Wike maintained that whoever emerged as governorship candidate of the PDP, no matter how unpopular such a candidate might be, would be elected as the next governor of the state.
We are not a candidate. There's nothing anybody can do about it. That's our candidate. With the performance of administration, with what we have achieved in this state, there's no candidate that PDP will present that will not win election.
In the conduct of the PDP governorship primaries in Akwa Ibom, Delta and Rivers States, governors of the 3 oil-rich states allegedly used huge sums of money to woo delegates. In Delta State, for instance, a certain delegate identified as Tina Umokoro was recently congratulated on Facebook for purchasing a new car with proceeds from the PDP governorship primary election. In his reaction, Chioma Agaruka says all those who sold their conscience in the just concluded PDP governorship primaries in the Niger Delta would have themselves to blame in the long run.
Tomorrow, the same persons who have collected this money and vote against their conscience will be the people to cry out foul that, they are not getting the dividends of democracy as it's supposed to be.
While the various camps of incumbent governors in oil-rich states of the Niger Delta are still basking in the euphoria of victory, there are fears that the conduct of the PDP governorship primaries in their respective states will most likely impact negatively on the process and outcome of the general elections, where the losers will attempt to vent their anger. The expected outcome of the entire scenario is an attempt by the feuding parties to secure victory at all costs, a situation that could result in an unbridled violence during the main elections. Only time will tell how the entire episode plays out in 2023.
Inside the Niger Delta.
In our next report, we'll take a look at how the opposition All Progressives Congress, APC, conducted its governorship primary elections in the region.
A day after the People's Democratic Party, PDP, conducted its governorship primaries nationwide, Nigeria's ruling All Progressives Congress followed suit on Thursday, 26 May 2022. It was a defining moment for the APC to assert itself in the Niger Delta after several unsuccessful attempts to dislodge the PDP in the region since 2015. In Delta State, the sole aspirant of the APC, Senator Ovie Omoagege, secured 1,190 votes to clinch the party's governorship ticket. Shortly after he was declared winner, Senator Omoagege, Nigeria's Deputy Senate President, said his party was all set to take over the reins of power and reinvent governance in Delta State.
We are just in a hurry, to get to work, win the elections, and then liberate our people.
Unlike in Delta State, the conduct of the APC governorship primaries in Akwa Ibom and Rivers States did not go unchallenged by aggrieved parties. In Akwa Ibom State, businessman and philanthropist Akanimo Udofia won the APC governorship primaries. Udofia, who recently defected from the PDP to the APC in pursuit of his governorship ambition, emerged victorious, having polled a total of 1,227 votes to beat 7 other aspirants, including former Senior Special Assistant to the President on Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Ita Enang, and Senator James Udoede, a former Minister of State for the Federal Capital Territory. The APC governorship primary election in Akwa Ibom State, which dragged on till the early hours of Friday, the 27th of May 2022, was largely characterized by power play between opposing camps in the party. In the end, Akanimo Udofia emerged as the party's flag bearer in the 2023 Akwa Ibom State governorship election.
We are going to build a greater Akwa Ibom State. It's going to be an enormous task. But when I look at the resilience of each and every one of you party faithfuls here, I know together we will join hands to build. I stand on the mandate and I assure you that come February, with the resilience I see from each and every one of you, with a great platform, APC, we are going to take over the state.
In the meantime, former Senior Special Assistant to the President on Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Ita Enang, and other aggrieved aspirants in the contest have described the outcome of the APC governorship primaries as anything but desirable. In Rivers State, billionaire businessman architect Tonye Cole secured the governorship ticket of the APC after polling 986 votes out of a total vote cast of 1,282. On the ballot were 6 other aspirants, including Senator Magnus Abbey, a former secretary to the Rivers State government, who got only 1 vote. While the APC governorship primary election was ongoing at the Adokie Amiasimaka Stadium, Senator Abbey held a press conference at another location in Port Harcourt where he condemned the process as unjust.
At the beginning of this whole thing, when I declared, I said I will not accept the outcome of any process that is not just. The indirect primaries being conducted today by the former Minister of Transportation and his cronies in the All Progressives Congress in Rivers State clearly does not meet that standard. And for that reason, while I have decided not to participate, not to withdraw out of respect for the party, I want to say clearly that I will not accept the outcome, neither will I be bound by it.
In 2019, infighting between rival camps controlled by Senator Magnus Abe and Rotimi Amechi had given rise to multiple litigations. In the end, the APC was not on the ballot in Rivers State. Architect Tonye Cole enjoins Magnus Abe to sheath his sword and let bygones be bygones.
I want to state firmly that we have always said that as soon as anyone emerges through the primaries, that we will all come together as one family to support. I had made the promise that if I was not the one that emerged from these primaries, I would support everyone, including Senator Magnus Abe. Today, I'm calling on Senator Magnus Abe to lay down the sword and come and let us build this state to a greater state.
With the exception of Delta State, where Deputy Senate President Ovie Omo-Agege clinched the APC governorship ticket in what has been adjudged a rancor-free process, the just concluded governorship primaries in Akwa Ibom and Rivers States have been greeted with strong disapprovals by aggrieved governorship aspirants and their supporters. Clearly, the APC needs to put its house in order in readiness for the 2023 general elections in the Niger Delta, which is currently under the firm grip of the opposition People's Democratic Party.
Inside the Niger Delta, Azikel Group, oil and gas, dredging, power and air transportation. Azikel Group, petroleum product sufficiency, energy sustainability, and infrastructure development.
Everything home, all in one place. Visit Home Options today at 22 Aba Port Harcourt Express Road, Port Harcourt, Rivers State, or call 080-998-08678 or 080-331-34055 or visit our website www.homeoptionsng.com.
Next in our lineup is a report on the controversy trailing the approval for the construction of a 5.1 billion naira international conference center in Asaba by the Delta State government.
With 1 year left in his 8-year administration in Delta State, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa continues to award contracts for the construction of projects across the state. This is in spite of the fact that there are several uncompleted projects scattered across Delta State. On Thursday, the 19th of May 2022, Governor Okowa announced the construction of an international conference center in Asaba, the Delta State capital, at a cost of 5.1 billion naira. According to the Delta State Commissioner for Information, Charles Aniagu, the conference center project, which will be completed in the next 12 months, will be quite different from the Dome Event Center in Asaba, also built by the Delta State government.
Today we approved the
construction of an international conference center, and that international conference center is estimated to cost us 5.1 billion naira. The not too distant time, we will have an international conference center where conferences and the likes will be held. Of course, you may want to ask, what about the event center? The event center is also in use for a whole lot of other activities, but you know it's not built for conferences. So the international conference center will be another attraction that will bring so many persons, international members of the international community, to converge on Asaba for the purpose of holding conferences.
Niger Delta activist Comrade Sharif Mulade disagrees with the state government and says the conference center project is a white elephant project designed not for the betterment of Delta State, but for pecuniary benefits.
We already have 2 conference centers in Asaba. What are the economic value of those projects? International Conference Center in Asaba will not do anything. It's an elephant political project. There is no road in this state. There is no industry in this state. There is no single infrastructure.
In his own reaction to the conference center project, Deputy Senate President and APC governorship candidate for Delta State, Senator Oviomo Agege, says the project is senseless and the state government should rather use the funds earmarked for the project to offset outstanding pension arrears.
We are not happy that while we have all of these obligations neglected to our pensioners and people who have given their best years, the government is spending 5.1 billion naira in the erection or construction of a new convention edifice. We don't think that this makes sense in any way. See, there's so much infrastructural decadence in this state in the past how many years?
Information Commissioner Charles Anyago says Governor Okowa has already approved a mobilization fee of 35% to be paid to the contractor.
And to enable us to fast-track that process, ESCO has approved that 35% mobilization fee be made available so that the contractor will not end up saying he's going to look for funds.
While querying the 35% mobilization fee for the contract, Comrade Sharif Mulade wondered if the mobilization fee is in line with the state's Public Procurement Act.
Well, we are shocked. But we are not surprised because it has a political undertone. The government will go ahead to approve 35% of taxpayers' resources of the state to a contractor unknown to the people. This is an election era. Government at this level are all creating elephant projects possible to fund elections, and which is bad in our politics.
To ensure probity in government, former Governor Emmanuel Udwara of Delta State in 2008 introduced the Delta State Public Procurement Commission law, which stipulates, among other things, in Section 37, that a mobilization fee of not more than 15% of contract sum may be paid to a contractor. However, upon assumption of office, Governor Okowa has amended the law twice, with the last amendment on the 7th of May 2020. This amendment in Section 41 now empowers Governor Okowa, in conjunction with the State Procurement Council, to pay any amount they consider appropriate as mobilization fee. In other words, Governor Okowa and the Council can approve 100% mobilization fee and it will be legal. Frank Tete, a legal practitioner, blames the Delta State House of Assembly under the leadership of Right Honorable Sharif Oborewori for what it describes as an unhealthy collusion between the state legislature and Governor Okowa.
When it was in the time of Governor Dwaga, he made a law that all contractors be paid a maximum of 15% mobilization fee so that there will be responsible delivery of the contracts. Governor Okowa came, amended that law, and to say that, look, it is whatever the council decides that it will pay as mobilization. So it can decide to pay 30%, 35%, 50%, and even 100% as mobilization fee, so long as the contract has been approved by the council and by the governor. Let us not forget that we are not aware that there is something called kickback. Let us not forget that we're not aware that there are people who are cronies, who simply represent these people who run government. They are representatives. They are cronies. This government, this contract simply belong to them. And so this amendment is simply to just empower themselves, enrich themselves, generate a contract, approve it, and then decide whatever mobilization fee to pay. That is criminal. Yet this happened as if people were not in Delta. This happened as if we did not have members of the House of Assembly watching what was going on. Look at the way they are using it to fund elections, to the detriment of the development and the interest of the state.
As Governor Okowa goes ahead with the conference center project, most Deltans are asking him to shelve it and instead use the approved sum of 5.1 billion naira for the completion of other ongoing projects in the state.
Inside the Niger Delta.
And finally, into this package is a report on expectations of Niger Deltans as President Muhammadu Buhari plans to inaugurate a new board for the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC.
Following completion of the NDDC forensic audit exercise and the subsequent transmission of its final reports to the presidency, there have been calls on President Muhammadu Buhari to appoint a substantive board to pilot the Commission's affairs for the common good of communities in the Niger Delta. However, some Niger Deltans have advised the government of President Buhari to refrain from inaugurating a regular board that is composed of politicians. One-time majority leader of the Cross River State House of Assembly, Honorable Cletus Obun, insists that the incoming board should comprise technocrats with the proven ability to implement recommendations of the NDDC forensic audit reports.
The forensic audit should become a template below which no other chairman or board should go. We must do a complete job, a forensic analysis of every aspect and every actor.
The NDDC was established through an Act of Parliament in 2000 to aid development and douse tension in the Niger Delta by designing and implementing projects and programs geared towards the transformation of largely backward communities in the region. As revealed in the NDDC forensic audit reports, the Commission was unable to effectively deliver on its mandates as over 13,000 projects it awarded over a period of 18 years had been abandoned. Comrade Dunamene Fineface looks forward to a board that would institute a paradigm shift by embracing a more innovative project management culture in the NDDC.
And the communities where these projects are going to be executed should be involved in that process for them to know that social projects in their communities have been awarded to so company a so amount. That if they fail to execute the contract, they should be held liable. If they can do this, it will help to making sure that contracts awarded by the NDDC is not abandoned.
Given the magnitude of abandoned NDDC projects over a period of 18 years, former president of the Isoko National Youth Assembly, Comrade Ovie Mwakpo, wants the incoming board to focus on the completion of existing projects rather than award new ones.
I don't think it will be appropriate or it will be wise for the incoming board to begin to initiate new projects. I think they need to look at the projects that have been awarded over the contract that have been awarded, the level of execution, and see the level, their viability too, and the impact that they will have on the people of the region.
In response to calls for reforms in the NDDC by several groups in the Niger Delta, President Buhari in October 2019 ordered a forensic audit of the Commission's activities from its inception in 2001 to September 2019. Upon receiving final reports of the forensic audit in September 2021, President Buhari had promised that it would serve as a template for NDDC operations going forward. Niger Deltans are optimistic, therefore, that the incoming board will be properly constituted and inaugurated to give the NDDC a new sense of direction to enable it deliver on its mandate as an intervention agency.
Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, making a difference. Inside the Niger Delta.
Well, just before we go, a quick reminder that the Supreme Court had last week directed Dakuku Peterside, a former Director General of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, to pay the sum of 6 billion naira as compensation for character assassination of the former governor of Rivers State, Sir Dr. Peter Odili, for alleging that he facilitated the electoral victory of Governor Nyesom Wike in the 2015 governorship election. The Supreme Court had, in a unanimous judgment last week, held Dakuku Peterside liable for a case of libel instituted by the former governor of Rivers State. And in a related development, the Supreme Court had last week given the Rivers State government the nod to probe former Governor Rotimi Chibika Amechi over an alleged unlawful sale of vital investments of the state to a private investor. In the judgment, the Apex Court averred that there was no justification in the attempt by the former governor to stop the planned probe of a 96 billion naira fraud perpetrated during his reign as governor between 2007 and 2015. The outcome of this entire scenario will definitely peter out in the coming days. Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region will be back same time, same station next week. Until then, you can follow us on our social media handles shown right now on your screen. And please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at NDN-TV Nigeria. Until next week, I am Mahmoud Akuga thanking you for staying tuned. Bye for now.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm not.
There is no voting on social media. To vote, you would require a permanent voter's card. To get your PVC, visit cvr.inecnigeria.org. Create your account with a valid email address and start the registration process. An activation link will be sent to you. Click on the link and activate your account. Fill out the form, pick and submit a convenient date and time for your biometrics. Print the application slip, which should have your QR code. On the appointed date, go to the nearest INEC office for your biometric capturing. Thereafter, you will get a registration slip to pick your permanent voter's card when ready. Get your PVC today. This message is from Plus TV Africa.
On Plus TV News now.
APC screening committee disqualifies 10 presidential aspirants. Kremlin declines blame for mounting food crisis in Africa. Former Trump advisor Navarro indicted for contempt of Congress. Hello and welcome. Good evening, I'm Tolu Ojewumi, and this is the news now. The APC Presidential Screening Committee has disqualified 10 aspirants from its primaries scheduled for next week. Chairman of the committee, John Oyegun, revealed this today. Only 13 out of the 23 aspirants screened were cleared by the committee. He added that only youthful aspirants made the list of cleared aspirants.
So the ability to lead, your background, your experience, your understanding of the Nigerian situation, your ideas as to how issues, difficulties, problems, and the rest can be addressed, and how the country can be moved forward, became a critical consideration. It is on that basis. Who are you? What have you achieved? What is your understanding of your nation? And what do you think you can contribute to move the nation forward? It was on the basis of that that we made our final shortlist. But we have a shortlist. We brought the number severely down to 13. And there is this cleavage that is gradually becoming center stage in national discourse between the North and the South and the presidency. And we just want to, and we advise strongly that the party should please think of it in making its decision.
I listened with very keen interest the comment that the chairman made in the course of this submission. One thing which I find worthy of very special mention is the fact that the Nigerian youth have responded. They have, from among them, people who braved the spirit of competition and offered themselves to be considered for this very, very important.
Meanwhile, the committee denied screening former President Goodluck Jonathan. Oyegun confirmed this today when he submitted his report. He told journalists that, contrary to news making the rounds, Jonathan was not at Transcorp Hilton for the exercise.
Those who sent us have the report, and I think it is their privilege to disclose whatever is in it, not us. They haven't read it yet. We just presented it, so I can't come and disclose the details in the report. The discretion of the party management. What we've done is to tell them that these people are qualified. And then we are not aware we disqualified anybody, but I think most of them were high quality people, and they passed the basic tests.
Cleared aspirants are now expected to contest the presidential primary at the scheduled special convention in Abuja between June 6 and 8. In the meantime, the Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu Presidential Campaign Organization has stated that the comments made by Bola Tinubu have been misinterpreted by the media. The reports of Tinubu's comments were described as erroneous, misleading, and mischievous. Tinubu's comments were in the public domain and were facts which had been analyzed for years. Tinubu's speech in Abeokuta did not demonstrate any disrespect to President Buhari, for whom he has a very high regard and whose re-election campaign he chaired in 2019. Since the video of the speech he delivered in Yoruba hit the social media, varied interpretations have been given to the speech, which in the main was about Governor Abiodun, who, in the true tradition of Yoruba culture, bowed to his leader after Tinubu's short speech. The campaign organization hereby appeals to the media to avoid over-sensationalizing issues of facts and play its constitutional role of informing the electorate to make informed choices at the presidential primary. The APC Senatorial and House of Representatives Appeal Panel sitting in Makurdi has so far received over 16 petitions from aggrieved aspirants from the just concluded primaries in the state. The petitioners are calling for the cancellation of the primaries and fresh round conducted with the 6 days extended by INEC or stand losing Benue State for the ruling party.
Senatorial aspirant Tongi Malu before the panel said the exercise lacked the standard to be called a senatorial primaries, as electoral officials and materials were improvised in favor of an aspirant, and urged the panel to call for another exercise for the good of the party in the state.
The result sheets had problems. There's no way to authenticate any of the result sheet. There was no stamp, there was no signature, there was no serial number. And you can have 100 of those. So it's easy for somebody to duplicate, it's simple for somebody to replace. So I raised such an issue also. And on the result sheet again, the issue of accreditation. There's a place for registered members and there's a place for accredited members. But there was no register. And without a register, how can you accredit people? But the result sheets that were returned after the exercise contained accredited members. And the question I'm asking is, how do you accredit somebody without a register?
Barrister Benjamin Wayo, Honorable Ahula Gegi, and 6 others are also seeking justice from the Philip Ezang-led House of Representatives panel to contest the forthcoming election after submitting that no primaries was held.
I've come to present my case to them, to the appeal panel, that no election took place. And if somebody was mistakenly submitted as a candidate, that person should be removed immediately. And whatever that has happened, it should be cancelled. I have no single other line of action. All I'm after is for the right thing to be done. And I will continue to fight for that justice, because that is the reason why I'm in the Progressive Party. If not, I would have been in another political party.
Addressing the sitting, the chairman APC Senatorial Appeal Panel, Isent Unsude, said the appeal committee will look into the petitions and submit a favorable recommendation that will keep the party together.
Summarily, we have 4 petitions, and we will do justice to it. And as you know, we are sent here to receive the petitions and make recommendations. So it is the final verdict is not coming from this panel. The final verdict will be done by the APC holistically.
As the various appeal panels are looking into petitions, members of senatorial districts and constituencies are holding special congresses to affirm candidates of the party at all levels.
And in Adamawa State, 5 APC senatorial aspirants have rejected the results of the Southern Zone primaries in which Adamu Ismaila was declared winner. Addressing a press conference in Yola, the aggrieved aspirants distanced themselves from the exercise, accusing the Electoral Committee of allocating votes to their names. The said result of vote buying by the agent of one of the aspirants with overwhelming evidences forced the Electoral Committee to postpone the election to address the anomalies.
The Electoral Committee postponed the exercise and assured all of us that the exercise will continue after the issue of criminality had been resolved. The Electoral Committee also made clear to everybody that at that point it was no longer an allegation, but that they had substantiated, in view of the promissory notes found on the body of the agent, that they had substantiated the allegation. And because of the gravity, it was necessary to suspend the exercise, and when the issues were resolved, we would take it on from there. We dispersed. Some of us barely escaped the premises alive because all sorts of seedy characters and thoughts had found their way into the premises.
But the Nigerian electoral law is very, very clear on this. You don't do this to the full glare of the people and openly compromising the process of the election. And what happened was that the pattern was established that day in favor of a particular aspirant who had the promissory notes in his pocket.
It has been made clearly written, that that act is unlawful, is unaccepted, and is not part and parcel of the party. For that reason, it is a very, very serious offense.
Now, the PDP Ondo State has inaugurated reconciliation committees aimed at settling any issues that might have come up during the party's primary elections, with a view to bringing all stakeholders on the same page in the overall interest of the party. The state chairman, Honorable Fatai Adams, said the committee have carefully selected leaders with proven records of dedication and commitment to the party and expressed confidence in their ability to deliver on the mandate. The state chairman equally urged the candidates to take the reconciliation agenda to their co-contestants in order to get the best out of the exercise. Take a listen.
As a political party, when you have programs like congresses, primaries, we are bound to have pockets of issues across the 18 local government. We cannot say that everything is smooth. We are not angels. So, but in order to put our house in order and to get ourselves prepared for 2023 election as a united family, we have to reconcile ourselves. We have different tendencies, different ideas, different opinions, but we must bring everybody on board to work together and deliver.
State Chairman Alhaji Fatai Adam did is to invite all the leaders of the party from all central districts to look into the issue of challenges that faced us during the primaries and the congresses, and to bring the party to one united, happy family. We are excited that he did that, and we are, giving all it takes to ensure that the party is united in readiness for the 2023 general election.
From Odo State, we move to Adamawa State, and Governor Madu Maruf Ntiri says the PDP has been putting strategies in place to retake power from the APC in the country in the 2023 general elections. Ntiri revealed this to newsmen in an interview shortly on his arrival from Abuja at Yola International Airport, where he was received by top government officials. The governor said the party, after having conducted a successful convention that produced Atiku Abubakar as its flag bearer, is now putting machinery in motion for the unity of card-carrying members.
As far as this convention is concerned, there is no victor, no vanquish. It is the PDP that won, and we are together and we are working assiduously to see that the presidency is for PDP. All of us are together. If you see, all those who participated in the election have visited each other, and they have reconciled the 2023 election will be for our party, so that we can form government and do away with all the vices that this present government have created for Nigerians and for Nigeria.
Niger Delta Rights Assembly NDRA has made a case for Governor Ifeanyi Okowa of Delta State to be nominated as running mate to the presidential standard bearer of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar. A number of individuals are featuring prominently on the list of candidates being considered for the position. However, NDRA, which comprises mainly youths drawn from across the Niger Delta states, has advised Atiku to pick Okowa, describing him as the best suited for the job among the lot. In the meantime, former national chairman of APGA, Senator Victor Ume, has defected to the Labour Party. This was after being denied the ticket of APGA to vie for the Anambra Central Senatorial seat for the 2023 general elections. There is ongoing primary of LP in Uka, where Ume is to be nominated as a candidate of the party for Anambra Central. Ume will slug it out with Senator Uche Ekwenifo of PDP, Dozen Wanko of APGA, and Chief Kodilichukwu Okelekwe of APC in the main election next year. INEC has launched the regulations and guidelines for the conduct of general elections in the country. The chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, announced this during a meeting of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security at the Commission's headquarters in Abuja. According to the INEC chief, the electoral umpire has virtually concluded the planning processes for the 2023 polls 9 months ahead of the elections, with the release of the regulations and guidelines and earlier publication of the Strategic Plan 2022 to 2026 and Election Project Plan 2023. The Lagos State government says about 5,000 motorcycles have been crushed in the first quarter of the year 2022. Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Gbenga Omotosho, made it known at the crushing site in Alausa. He said the 2,000 bikes which were crushed today show how serious the government is in its enforcement. Plus TV correspondent Lavi Kukwe tells us more.
Here are over 2,000 motorcycles, also known as Okadas, being crushed by the Lagos State government. It goes to show the seriousness that the state government attaches to ensuring that the state is rid of Okadas and its menace.
Commissioner for Information, Gbenga Omotosho, and Transport Commissioner, Dr. Frederick Oladende, walked journalists through the crushing site to witness the destruction of the motorbikes.
People have been wondering what we've been doing with the Okadas that have been taken out of town. So for you to see what we have been doing with them, this is why we invited you here today. I'm happy you have seen the way they have been crushed.
Mr. Omotosho says that the government had to take the enforcement seriously due to the excesses of the riders and the alarming rate of road accidents recorded this year alone.
In the first 4 months of this year, we had 1,712 Okada accidents. Of these, 700 of road accidents. Of the 1,712, 767 were due to Okada.
Omotosho, however, called on riders securing through the state ultramodern transport schemes to get actively engaged. Commissioner for Transportation, Frederick Oladende, urged residents to remain calm and obey traffic laws as alternative means of transportation have been provided.
We're putting more high-capacity buses on the road. The government is working around the clock to make sure that our rail system is working. We've increased the number of boats on our waterways, and they should just be calm and move about their daily business.
Chairman of Lagos State Task Force says there is no going back on the enforcement.
We don't see Okadas on the road, on the express any longer. The number has drastically reduced. But I know for sure, and I'm passing this information to them because they are watching us. They might be of the belief that the first 1 week of the enforcement will be thorough. After 1 week, we are going to relax. Anyway, we will watch and see. But I'm passing this message to them that from next week, we will do more intense enforcement.
With the recent pronouncement and a continued enforcement on the ban, Lagosians hope is not short-lived so that the sanity is sustained. From Lagos,
President Muhammadu Buhari has now signed into law the new appropriation bill recently passed by the National Assembly. Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters, House of Representatives Umar El Yaqub, said the new law repeals the appropriation law passed by the lawmakers in December 2021. The new act increases the size of the federal budget for 2022 to 17.319 trillion naira. 817.699 billion naira is the statutory transfer, while 3.978 trillion naira will go to debt servicing. Justice Inyang Eko of the Federal High Court Abuja has fixed August 29 for judgment in the suit seeking to extradite a suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari, to the United States of America for trial on alleged internet fraud. The judge fixed the date after taking arguments for and against the suit by the parties involved. Kyari, whose arguments were presented by a senior advocate of Nigeria, Noreen Ejimo, asked the court to refuse the extradition request on the ground that he committed no offense to warrant the federal government taking him to the U.S. In the meantime, the Federal High Court Abuja today dismissed the fundamental rights enforcement suit filed by Nnamdi Kanu against the DSS. Justice Taiwo, in a judgment, dismissed the suit for lacking in merit and substance. Kanu had alleged that his health was deteriorating in the DSS custody, while also alleging that the medical personnel assigned to attend to him by the DSS were unqualified. Western Naval Command Headquarters played host to the French naval ship Border as they visited on a collaborative effort. It's towards hydrographic training activities and passage exercises at sea with NNS Lana, which was originally bought from them. In the same vein, an 18-man Indian National Defense College team led by Major General Rajesh Moghe was there. Edo State Police Command have declared wanted one pastor, Edubo Marvelous, for alleged involvement in ritual activities. The police public relations officer, Kotongs Bello, made it known while parading others who were apprehended on an errand for the fleeing clergy. Speaking to Plus TV News crew, the suspects narrated the level of their involvement in the crimes they were brought in for.
Because of these things, the casket was purchased on Saturday night. Then these other things, they normally use them. This one is black soap. Normally use them to make soap and other things. This other one is normal anointing oil. So that's for that. But that of the casket and the cat, he said he wanted to use it for work, for spiritual work, but he didn't disclose the particular work he wanted to use it for.
Well, I was going to my father, as in my pastor's house, in his car, alongside with this man here. The man was driving. I was going to his house when the police blocked us on the way. It was like, and they arrested us and they brought us here. They were asking us questions, how far about these things, what do we know? And I said, I don't really know much about it because I'm just a following boy, as in an errand boy. Like, I just followed them up to about 6 to 8 months now. I don't really know anything. It's not everything you will tell me because I'm more like a boy.
On receiving of the information, the police operative immediately mobilized to the scene, led by the commander crack unit of the command. They mobilized to the scene at number 26 Okumbawa Street, Iriri off Airport Road, Benin City. On arrival, they arrested 2 suspects, one Daniel Eguere, a male of 22 years, and Oboko Mavis, a male of 24 years, all indigents of Delta State but resident here in Benin. And also, the police during our preliminary investigation understood that the prime suspect, one Idobo Marvelous, a pastor, is presently on the run, and the police have put every necessary machinery on ground to ensure that he's been arrested.
The 2023 elections are drawing nearer, and Nigerians are not quiet on the role of the justice system before, during, and after the polls. That's from Street Views. Have a look.
The Electoral Act, once passed, becomes the law. And the duty of the court is to interpret the law the way it is, irrespective of who the interpretation will go against or not. Now, coming to 2023 election, before any election, the judiciary has a duty to put in election petition in place based on the Electoral Act. And when that is in place, the judiciary will be ready to take any case because the election petition would have been in place because it's special courts.
The judiciary has really doesn't have any preparation to make with respect to election. The judiciary is supposed to be a continuous process, and the only role of the judiciary is to interpret laws. So whatever laws become current or becomes extant, that is what the judiciary will do. The judiciary doesn't have to have a new preparation. They're supposed to be constant at every time. So the judiciary is good to go with respect to the 2023 elections.
The judiciary this time around should look beyond the technical justice and do substantial justice. Because it's on record that there was a time when a matter was called at the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, left number 1 and went for number 4. It would be against common sense to leave the person that scored second highest vote, the third highest vote, to go and pick the 4th highest vote. So it's what we call technical justice. So we're hoping and trusting that the judiciary this time around would look at substantial justice to ensure that politicians don't use the courtroom and the instruments of the law to achieve a selfish gain.
The only thing judiciary ought to do at this stage is to be very, very careful, because the politicians are at their game now. This is the time for frivolous application. This is the time for expert application. They will come through the back to get any relief to stop the election or to stop the process. So the judiciary should be watchful to shun all expert applications. What the judiciary can do, they can, what they call accelerated hearing. They can accelerate hearing, but let the other party be aware.
I want to bring you back the naval story, where we told you that the Western Naval Command headquarters played host to the French naval ship Border as it visited on a collaborative effort. It's towards hydrographic training activities and passage exercises at sea with NNS Lana, which was originally bought from them.
We have international partners that were there, navies from a lot of African and other countries beyond Africa that came, seeking collaboration. How do we make this better? How can we make the seas better? How can the seas be safer? The world today starts and ends with the sea. What do I mean? Everything we have in our countries move by sea. Everything we get into our countries, mostly, they say 90% of global trade is by water. So it means the sea is a very veritable asset that must be under command of man if other countries are to have good access. And that's why we here in the West Africa, Nigeria particularly, have tried to make sure that we have a good grips of our waters. We're not doing well before, but I think we're doing far better now. Can we do much better? It's a yes.
We have, this is today is the last day, and tomorrow we shall be exiting from Nigeria. We have broken into, the course is now broken into 8 teams, and each of the teams are visiting 2 nations. Ours is visiting Nigeria first, and tomorrow we shall be heading to Italy. So where we shall be spending the next one week of the study tour. So over the period of the past 1 week that we've been here in Nigeria, we have been exposed to various branches of the governance here, as well as some of the think tanks. Notably amongst them has been the Ministry of Defense and the Defense Headquarters, all the 3 service headquarters, the Resource Center in Abuja, and now here in the Institute of International Affairs. We've just now gone to the 81 the division headquarters, and now we are here.
We're here to have some very consistent collaboration on hydrography with the Nigerian Navy, and this is the first step in this cooperation after the acquisition for the Nigerian Navy of NNS Lana from OCA Company, and we're looking forward for more cooperation in the future. I'm sure this is a support that France is very honored and happy to provide to Nigeria in the development of maritime security and, of course, the blue economy on a regional perspective.
Still ahead. 2 soldiers killed, 9 injured in Mali ambush. Details when we return. Please stay with us.
Life can be fun and rewarding, but it also comes with some risk. As in business, you win some, you lose some. And that's why you need to be wise in the choices you make. It's like placing a bet. Again, you need to be wise. Wise in choosing an innovative platform with the highest market options and highest odds ever. That's why Winners Golden Bet, the leader in online, in-shop, virtual, and live sports betting, gives you enhanced platforms that offer you the best chances of winning. For betting on live soccer matches, live dog races, and virtual games. Winners Golden Bet is your best bet. Instant payment of winnings guaranteed. Play online or in any of our numerous shops nearest to you.
Hey guys, be wise. Play on Winners Golden Bet.
Winners Golden Bet, the wise choice.
Moving on tonight, Russian President Vladimir Putin met African Union leaders today at the Kremlin. He said he would tell them that Moscow was not to blame for the growing food crisis affecting the continent. State TV showed Putin greeting Senegalese President Macky Sall, chairman of the AU, and Moussa Faki Mahamat, chairman of the AU Commission, at the start of talks in the southern Russian resort of Sochi. Russia's army has seized much of Ukraine's southern coastline in the course of its 100-day war, and its warships control access to the country's Black Sea ports. But it continues to blame Ukraine and the West for the resulting halt in Ukrainian grain exports.
Aussi contre la Russie ont entraîné plus de gravité.
He said the sanctions against Russia have resulted in more seriousness since we are no longer having access to cereals from Russia, to wheat in particular, and above all to fertilizers, while our agriculture is already in deficit, and this is creating serious food threats.
Déjà déficitaire. Et ça crée vraiment de sérieuses menaces sur la sécurité alimentaire du continent.
I spoke to the European Council on Tuesday, telling them, you say that there is a war crisis, but there are also sanctions. But we have to work together on both registers so that everything concerning the food component, cereals, fertilizers, be out of the penalties.
Ethiopia's Amhara region is experiencing government-led mass arrests and disappearances of activists, journalists, and other perceived critics. More than 4,500 people have been arrested in the Amhara region as of May 23, according to officials. But some activists say the real figure could be much higher. They accuse Ethiopia's government of targeting ethnic Amhara people it considers a threat to its authority as it tries to move on from the Tigray crisis. The arrests are the latest sign that the federal government of Ethiopia is struggling to centralize its authority among scores of ethnic groups. 2 soldiers have been killed and 9 injured in an ambush in northern Mali. Forces had reacted to a complex ambush on the road between Gossi town and the city of Gao yesterday. Mali has since 2012 been racked by an extremist insurgency by groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the so-called ISIS terrorist group. Morocco announced yesterday its first confirmed case of monkeypox infection at the height of the country's tourist season. It's a case from a European country detected under the protocol established by Morocco since the launch of the Global Health Alert. This first case was detected in Casablanca, the largest city in Morocco. It's a Moroccan man who arrived in the country from France. Let's move outside Africa. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said today that his country's military would fend off the Russian invasion in a video marking 100 days of Moscow's all-out assault on its pro-democracy neighbor. Victory will be ours, Zelensky said in the video.
The head of faction is here. The presidential chief of staff is here. The prime minister of Ukraine, Shmyhal, is here. Podolyak is here. The president is here. Our team is much bigger. The armed forces of Ukraine are here. And most importantly, our people, the people of our country, are here. We have been defending Ukraine for 100 days now. Victory will be ours. Glory to Ukraine.
Перемога за нами. Слава Україні.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, meanwhile, paid a visit today to wounded servicemen receiving medical care in a Kyiv hospital as Russia's assault on its neighbor entered its 100th day. Earlier this month, Zelensky said that up to 100 soldiers are killed in action per day and around 500 soldiers get wounded. During the visit to the hospital, Zelensky awarded doctors expressing gratitude for their work, both in the hospitals and in the field. Czech Prime Minister Petro Fiala said he and his Polish counterpart today discussed ways Poland could help the Czech Republic reduce its dependency on Russian raw materials and energy. Speaking after a joint meeting of the Czech and Polish governments in Prague, Fiala said this could be done by increasing gas interconnections between Poland and the Czech Republic. Earlier this week, EU leaders agreed to an embargo on Russian crude oil imports that will take full effect by the end of this year. Now, Peter Navarro, former trade advisor to President Donald Trump, has been indicted on 2 counts of contempt of Congress. This is for his failure to comply with a subpoena from the House of Representatives Committee investigating the January 6 attack on the U.S. Capitol. A federal grand jury charged Navarro with 1 count involving his refusal to appear for a deposition before the January 6 Select Committee and another count for his refusal to produce documents. Navarro was due to make an initial appearance this afternoon in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is facing increasing pressure to step down over a Partygate scandal that revealed both he and Downing Street officials broke stringent laws that his government made during the pandemic. Today, Johnson was greeted with a chorus of boos and jeers as he arrived at a service of Thanksgiving for Queen Elizabeth to mark her Platinum Jubilee. A damning official report published last month detailed a series of illegal parties at Johnson's Downing Street office during COVID-19 lockdowns, prompting a new wave of calls for him to step aside. More than 25 conservative lawmakers have called on Johnson to resign, while at least a further 6 have criticized his conduct, but stopped short of saying he should resign. At least 3 people were killed and 16 severely injured when a regional train derailed in the southern Germany today. A police spokesperson who did not have any details on the fatalities said the Munich-bound train had been quite full at the time of the crash north of Garmisch-Partenkirchen. It is a ski resort in Bavaria that is also popular with hikers in the summer. In total, 60 people were hurt in the accident. Up next, federal government directs NNPC to implement ECOWAS Morocco-Europe pipeline deal. That's in business news. After this short break, please stay with us.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Well,
welcome to Plus Trending. I am Vicky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
The federal government has directed the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) to implement a deal on a gas pipeline to Europe through Morocco. Africa's gas resources are increasingly in the spotlight as the European Union looks to wean itself off Russian supplies through the invasion of Ukraine in February. Petroleum Minister Timipre Silva told reporters in Abuja that the approval for a memorandum of understanding on the gas project with West African Regional Bloc (ECOWAS) was given after the Federal Executive Council meeting. The Central Bank of Nigeria has ordered banks and payment service providers to accept indemnity from customers for highly secured online funds transfers. A circular signed by the Director, Payment System Management Department, Musa Jimo, stated that banks must provide customers with the option of electronic or paper indemnity based on the customer's preference. The CBN also released another guideline for the registration and operation of bank-neutral cash hubs in Nigeria, cash collection centers to be established by registered processing companies or deposit money banks based on business needs. The total value of foreign investment or capital importation into Nigeria dropped on a quarter-on-quarter basis by 28.1% to $1.6 billion in the first quarter of 2022. The National Bureau of Statistics in its capital importation report says on a year-on-year basis, capital importation dropped by 17.5% from $1.9 billion recorded in the first quarter of 2021. The report also highlighted that in terms of sectors, capital importation into banking had the highest inflow of $818.8 million, amounting to 52.1% of total capital imported in the first quarter of 2022. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries (OPEC) has raised the Nigeria crude oil quota from 1.772 million barrels per day for June 2022 to 1.799 million barrels per day in July 2022. It was upped by 27,000 barrels, resulting in a 3.4% increase in the month of July. The cartel broke the news in its press statement on its 29th OPEC and non-OPEC ministerial meeting was held via video conference, stating that the organization approved the highest production volume of 10.833 million barrels per day for Saudi Arabia and Russia.
Entertainment news is up next. Please stay with us.
Nigerian rapper Atiku has expressed shock after his 14-year-old in-law was mysteriously found dead in a boarding school. The rapper took to his Instagram page where he shared the shocking details about the child's death. The rapper said that there are many discrepancies in the story surrounding the death. Meanwhile, Kim Kardashian is giving a helping hand for the grieving family in Uvalde, Texas. She revealed that she reached out to prison officials to ask for the temporary release of Eli Torres, the father of one of the victims of the Uvalde school shooting on May the 24th. Eli is currently locked up in Pine Knot, Kentucky, as according to Bureau of Prisons online records. The 45-year-old is not scheduled for release until 2033. Barack Obama has paid a touching tribute to Queen Elizabeth on her Platinum Jubilee. The 60-year-old politician who served as the 44th president of the United States met the 96-year-old monarch many times on state visits to Buckingham Palace during his time in power. In his heartfelt message, Obama, who said that the Queen reminded him of his own grandmother as he reflected on the special relationship, hailed Her Majesty for her steadfast stewardship over the past 70 years and said her life has been a gift to the world. Vitoni finally reacts to comments from music fans who accused him of faking his working abnormalities after surviving a ghastly motor accident in 2021. Talking about the allegations, he said that it came at the right time, as according to him, life is funny. He also said he was not disappointed that people could have such notion of him.
And the main news again. APC screening committee disqualifies 10 presidential aspirants. Kremlin declines blame for mounting food crisis in Africa. We also told you the former Trump advisor Navarro indicted for contempt of Congress. That's the news now. For more stories, please follow us on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. I'm Tolu Ojomi. Thanks for watching and do have a good night.
There is no voting on social media. To vote, you would require a permanent voter's card. To get your PVC, visit cvr.inecnigeria.org. Create your account with a valid email address and start the registration process. An activation link will be sent to you. Click on the link and activate your account. Fill out the form, pick and submit a convenient date and time for your biometrics. Print the application slip, which should have your QR code. On the appointed date, go to the nearest INEC office for your biometric capturing. Thereafter, you will get a registration slip to pick your permanent voter's card when ready. Get your PVC today. This message is from Plus TV Africa.
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Hello there. My name is Oluseyi Akinwale Fashwi. Orúkọ rere ó sàn ju wúrà lọ, meaning a good name is worth more than gold. That was the creed imparted in us when growing up. This forms the background to my good old days story. My late grandfather, an Ondo man from Okegbogi compound in Ondo State, was a revered Reverend Father of the Anglican Communion that traversed the whole of Western region back then. His sojourn in line of work brought him to Abeokuta, where he met and married my grandmother of the Deke family at Ikuruake, Abeokuta. This is the basis of my dual lineage of an Ondo man and Egba man. My late father, Prophet Olujimi Timothy Fashui, resident in Ibadan, retired as a higher executive officer at the then Nigerian Cocoa Board, Cocoa House, while my late mother, a trader, Oluyemisi Fashui, hails from Abeokuta. I was born at Lafia Hospital in Ibadan. I am the first of only 2 children, the other being a girl, now married. I grew up with my maternal uncle, late Mr. Adekunle Ladende Esquire, who was then an agricultural officer and later a divisional officer at Ugumosho during the Western region days. My uncle, an Egbaman, was a strict disciplinarian. His wife, a midwife then, likewise trained us all on strict moral standards. I will share some of my learning experiences with them in the course of my story. I started my primary education at Bodija International School and completed it at St. Benedict's Private School, Ibara, Abeokuta, when my uncle was transferred to Ogun State after creation of states in the 70s. Then to St. Leo's High School for Secondary, Ogun State Polytechnic for A-levels, and University of Ilorin, where I obtained B.A. Hans degree in Performing Arts. Growing up was memorable and indeed indelible. From early days at Old Bodija, Ibadan, where streets were paved, neat clean gutters and drainage systems, security guaranteed, even with low fence and no barbed wires. It was then considered uncultured to speak across fence to your neighbors. Notable places then were Palm Chemist, Keba Chemist, KS Motel, Cocoa House, Agodi Gardens and Zoo, Premier Hotels, Rotunda, and a host of others. In those days of strong values, our normal day usually will begin with bell ringing by Daddy, my uncle, for prayers. Songs from hymnal books, psalms from Bible were sung and recited off heart. Till date, I can still read Psalm 23, 121, 122, 103, 91, and some others from memory. Then, everyone had a car to do before school. Everyone was trained to write with Ami, the foundational phonemic notations of Yoruba language, which is Doremi, and speak in Yoruba language. Proverbs, idioms, witty sayings, storytellings. Alo, alo. Oruku tindi tindi tindi, oruku tindi tindi tindi, oruku bimo, gbogbo ọmọ ẹ̀ ló yàjẹ́ o. Kíni o? Pardon me as I won't be able to translate this in English language, but it suffices to say each story then ended with a lesson in moral and conduct. It is strange, therefore, to know that majority of families nowadays train their children strictly on English language and eroding our cultures and traditions, all in the name of westernization. This is a tickling time bomb. Values inculcated in us were good character, good name, discipline, integrity, truthfulness, cleanliness, hard work, dedication, loyalty, God-fearing, sound education, and responsibility. I remember a day I was running late and dressed up for school without doing my morning course. As I prostrated fully, saying, Udabosa, meaning bye-bye, sir, Daddy asked, have you done your course in Yoruba? I couldn't answer in the affirmative. He then asked that I should go and remove my uniform and perform my duties, and that when I get punished for lateness in school, next time I'll learn to wake up earlier and do my course. This taught me how to be responsible and time conscious. I remember another incident of my goose. My uncle requested for a glass of water. 50-50 calls it. Half hot water and half cold water, making it warm water. As I dashed from his front, I accidentally kicked or brushed his leg while leaving. He called me back and instructed me in Yoruba, Lo mu adawa kowage itakun to fese kolenkan, meaning go and bring a cutlass, machete, and cut the tree roots you kicked then. I turned to leave, only to realize my goof of not apologizing when I kicked his foot in error. I quickly prostrated and said, sorry, sir. That was courtesy lesson 101. And never forgot the incidents and lessons, using an idiom for corrections. Wow. I remember the good old telephone always under lock and key. I won't disclose some naughty pranks we played to dial numbers without opening the padlock. God help you if you are caught in the act. Your punishment will be near capital. I recall my uncle had tools of various artisans. We repaired minor things ourselves. Hammer, nails, saw, crowbar, shovels, plumb, ladder, plumbing machine, a toolbox for screwdrivers and paint brushes. We actually painted part of the house once. He was a hands-on man, a life skill I possess till date. Memories. What of dress code? Everyone must tuck in their shirts going out, neat and ironed. No collar flying. Hair must be cropped neat at Maridoti Babas, Makola. But what do we have today? Nudity has replaced decency. Now we glorify Yahooism as a profession. Drugs and drunkenness proliferate and rule our world. Mentorship gone to the winds and lawlessness now order of the day. How did we get here? Growing up, our orientation of sound moral values was right. And it has helped me later in life to mix freely with people of diverse cultures and traditions. It is the same values that has helped me in my passion, drive, and calling into integrated development communication initiatives, where we use arts as a tool for advocacy and education for attitudinal change of various publics. This is a clarion call, a call for us to revisit those old-time tested values of integrity, discipline, patriotism, hard work, dedication, humility, good character, and high moral standards. It is time for us to call the emerging generation to borrow a leaf from our past when there was dignity in labor, honesty, perseverance, and belief in God, who is the author and finisher of our faith. Let's shun tribal sentiments and embrace religious tolerance. Hunger does not discriminate. You are uniquely made. Nigeria can and will be great again if we all do the needful and stop the blame game. Let us ask ourselves one question. Am I truthful and honest in my dealings as a parent, government, or a businessman? What legacy are we leaving behind for our children? They deserve a future that is greater than our past. We owe them a duty to lead them right. Nigeria needs an urgent national moral rebirth to galvanize credible leadership and responsible followership. Therefore, I join Sir Shimore Badejo on this noble initiative to say there is hope for Nigeria still. Our good old days can be a foundation for a better tomorrow. Let's do our bit to make our country great again. Long live Nigeria. Thank you.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to say. And yes, we are talking. It is important we drive the right conversation that informs, inspires, influences thought and action. If we say there's beauty in our diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture. We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
man, I him baff me. Them is excuse, they slap me. Same people when I turn, they go yab me. Alright, tell me where then they run all they also how they try sustain. Every Saturday, from Ilaja down to Costain. I beg, no carry my blessing run. Today now you, tomorrow fi be my turn. Show me love, no go show me python. We be the same for Oluwa Kingdom. So me say, celebrate me. Now when I day alive, appreciate me. Now when I day alive, not be say when I live this life, you go the fake I'm for my wife. Celebrate me. Now when I day alive, appreciate me. Now when I day alive.